Chapter 41, Importance of Rank C Jutsus. The next day again began with the brutal morning workout. At 10 a.m., Renjiro asked, "So what have you guys decided to learn?" Mieko, wanting to talk first, quickly said, "Sensei, I've decided to learn Fire Release, 4 Jutsu, Flame Sphere Jutsu, Fireproof Jutsu, Earth Military Movement Jutsu, and Hiding like a Mole Jutsu." Renjiro nodded and asked, "Why?" Mieko said, "I already know Fire Release, 3 Jutsu, so Fire Release, 4 is the next step. It'll also be a very strong option in close combat. Earth Military Movement Jutsu and Hiding like a Mole Jutsu are to evade an enemy attack, and once I'm underground, it'll be a strong defense too. And if I have jumped and can't reach the ground, then I'll use Flame Sphere Jutsu to defend. And Fireproof Jutsu would help me become immune to Fire Release Jutsus." On hearing her reason, Fujin thought, she memorized the whole thing. Still Hiding like a Mole Jutsu. I should learn that one. I hope that Jutsu has some way to breathe underground. Though I did develop a few ways to ensure cracks in the surface to allow some flow of air underground, it is not very reliable. Renjiro too noticed the memorized answer and sighed internally. They still assisted her in the decision. Though this plan should be good enough. He then said, "That should be good enough. However, you will train to be able to perform Fire Release, 4 Jutsu without any hand signs." Mieko was confused. Without any hand signs? How and why? Renjiro replied, "Do you think that your enemies will wait for you to perform your hand signs when you are in a close combat? As to how, don't worry. I'll teach you." Mieko was very intrigued by it and nodded excitedly. He then looked over to Fujin. Fujin said, "I've decided to learn Spinning Shield of Wind Jutsu, Wind Gale Wolf Jutsu, Wind Dragon Jutsu, Faithful Wind Blade Jutsu, and Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu." This surprised Renjiro a bit. He thought, "That's surprising. He wants to learn 5 Rank C Wind Release Jutsu? I did have plans to suggest a couple of jutsus in case he chose only 1 or 2. I suppose this will be good too. I'll just teach those to him sometime later." Though Renjiro hit it soon, Fujin did notice him getting surprised. He sighed internally. "I would have preferred to train in them in secret, but he barely allows me any free time to do that. So if I only mention 1 or 2, then there's a chance that I might be stuck with only those for some time." Renjiro then nodded and asked, "Why?" Fujin replied, "Spinning Shield of Wind Jutsu will help me defend from frontal assaults and even counterattack. Gale Wolf and Wind Dragon Jutsu will allow me to attack from a distance and control the battlefield. And I could attack from both land and the sky with them. Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu is an escape jutsu. As for Faithful Wind Blade, I think that it'll complement samurai saber techniques well, so I plan to start with it." Renjiro thought, very good considering that he didn't have anyone to guide him. 2 jutsus very long range, 1 defensive, 1 close range and 1 escape jutsus, and he already has 2 usable mid-range jutsus. He then commented, "Good thinking. But later on you'll also have to learn your second element. Wind is good for offense but not very good for defense. Also, don't learn Faithful Wind Blade Jutsu right now. While it will complement samurai saber techniques, but that's only after you've mastered it. Right now it'll become an obstacle instead. Start with Wind Dragon Jutsu." Fujin nodded and asked, "Why should Wind Dragon Jutsu be learnt first? Wouldn't it be easier to learn Wind Gale Wolf Jutsu first and then learn Wind Dragon Jutsu?" Renjiro was impressed with the question. He answered, "I have some plans for your Wind Dragon Jutsu. So don't worry about it. As for the learning order, once you learn Wind Dragon Jutsu, it'll be much easier to learn Wind Gale Wolf Jutsu." Fujin nodded while thinking, "Yeah, but that doesn't make learning Wind Dragon Jutsu any easier." Renjiro then looked at Hoka. Hoka said, "I've decided to learn Body Flicker Jutsu, Stone Shuriken Jutsu, Rock Thorn Bed Jutsu, Rock Thorn Launch Jutsu, and Water Shuriken Jutsu." Both Fujin and Mieko noticed the sorrowful tone of Hoka. Renjiro thought, "I know you don't like ninjutsu, but is there a need to look at me like I owe you 1,000,000 ryo?" He ignored that and thought about the jutsus. Just like us, the Hyugas focus on earth and water elements too. The gentle fist style has both the sturdiness of earth and the flexibility of water. So even if they don't have those affinities, they are still trained in those elements. Luckily for him, he does have the earth affinity. Still, he chose only 1 rank C jutsu. All others are rank D. "I guess I need to take it slow with this kid," Renjiro asked once again. "Why?" Hoka replied the answer that his father had made him memorize. Body flicker is to increase my speed. My gentle fist style is restricted by range. So I can use body flicker to force the enemy into close combat. And if an enemy stays barely outside my range, then I can engage him with stone shuriken jutsu. If the fight is on water, then I can engage him with water shuriken jutsu. Rock thorn bed jutsu is to stop the enemies from running away, and rock thorn launch jutsu is in case the enemy jumps to avoid the rock thorns. Renjiro nodded and thought, the usual Hyuga tactic of using rock thorn bed jutsu for the reverse purpose. Though I'll have to make him learn more rank C earth and water release jutsus. Renjiro then looked at all three of his students and said, I'll now explain to you why I made you go through this exercise. But first tell me, which rank jutsu would you guys like to use? Mieko replied immediately, I'd like to learn and use rank S jutsu. She then looked at Renjiro with hopeful eyes. Renjiro chuckled internally and looked at the other two kids. Fujin was in thought, and Hoka appeared tense. Hoka, while sweating, said, R.A. Rank D-ju jutsus are enough for me. Mieko glared at Hoka for saying that. Renjiro then looked at Fujin and asked, Fujin? Fujin looked at his sensei and said, I'd like to use rank A or S jutsus too. But I'm not sure of how much chakra they would need. If just using one rank S jutsu completely drains my chakra, then it's kinda pointless, isn't it? Renjiro smiled on hearing that answer. Perfect. This kid's analytical ability is very good. Renjiro said, you are right. This exercise is for you guys to find the jutsus most suited for you. No matter what rank ninja you become in the future, the jutsus you'll use the most are rank C jutsus. The reason is that the jutsus that are rank B and above drain a lot of chakra and affect your ability to fight for long. He waited a few moments for the Genins to understand. He continued, so in the future, how good of a ninja you become will depend on how good you are at using the rank C jutsus you have. He then looked at Mieko and said, it isn't about the number of rank C jutsus you know, but about how good you are at using them. He then looked at Fujin and said, Fujin, use your great breakthrough jutsu on those trees. Fujin nodded, made the hand signs and released his great breakthrough jutsu. The jutsu created a lot of winds, causing the branches to shake wildly and a lot of leaves and twigs to fall down. The winds left deep cuts in most trees. After a minute, the winds died down. Fujin thought, alright, that's about 25% of my full power with this jutsu. Renjiro said, good, now watch this. Renjiro then made one hand sign, and then used great breakthrough jutsu himself. The power behind his jutsu was easily over 10 times of what Fujin had done. The winds went through a few trees. 3 trees were uprooted. And even though the jutsu wasn't directed at them, Fujin, Hoka and Mieko all felt those winds and had to hold on to the ground. Hoka and Mieko were very shocked by what they saw. Whereas Fujin had only one thought, isn't this illegal deforestation? Someone call the cops and the media. Old man Hashirama is no longer alive to just create more trees out of thin air, Mieko asked enthusiastically. But how? Why is your jutsu so much stronger than Fujin's? Renjiro replied, because I have mastered this jutsu to a greater degree than Fujin. Fujin rebuked internally, incorrect old man, you still had to use one hand sign. You just charged the jutsu with way more chakra than I did or can. Though I guess you were more efficient in chakra use. Renjiro continued, and this wasn't my full power. Nor have I completely mastered this jutsu. Had it been Lord Hokage, then he could have leveled this whole forest with just this jutsu. Mieko, Fujin and Hoka were very surprised and excited at that information. Or at least the other two were. Fujin sighed internally thinking, Hiruzen is a lot scarier here than in Naruto. I really wonder if Orochimaru will really be able to kill him or not. Satisfied with his students' reactions, Renjiro said, so this is why you need to focus on learning and mastering the proper rank C jutsus. In the future, these jutsus are what you'll be using the most. Of course, it doesn't mean that you should not learn higher rank jutsus. The additional power they provide is very useful. However, if you don't have a good set of rank C jutsus mastered, then you won't ever be able to become truly strong. Mieko and Fujin nodded, but Hoka still looked a bit reluctant. Renjiro looked at Hoka and said, Hoka, no matter how good you become at taijutsu, you'll never become a strong ninja without mastering a few good rank C jutsus. Hoka looked down and softly murmured, Even without ninjutsu I can still become a very strong ninja. Renjiro sighed and said, "Alright, we will have one spar between Fujin and you right now." Mieko pouted as she wasn't involved in the spar. Renjiro made Hoka and Fujin take their positions. While they were heading towards their position, Renjiro secretly whispered to Fujin. Chapter 42, Fujin vs. Hoka. Hoka and Fujin were facing each other and were 10 meters apart. Renjiro announced, "You can use everything you know in this spar. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu and kenjutsu are all allowed. But don't hurt each other fatally." Both kids nodded. Renjiro announced, "Fight." As soon as he said that, Hoka activated his Byakugan and rushed forward as fast as he could to engage Fujin in close combat. However, Fujin just flickered away. On gaining sufficient distance, he prepared one wind explosion jutsu in each hand. On seeing that, Hoka stopped and quickly started using hand signs for rock shield jutsu. Fujin recognized the hand signs and threw one wind sphere on Hoka. That put a lot of pressure on Hoka, but he managed to create the rock shield in time. The wind sphere hit the rock shield and exploded, creating a lot of winds. Seeing that his jutsu worked, Hoka sighed in relief and put his guard down for a moment. That turned out to be a mistake, as Hoka's Byakugan saw a wind sphere heading towards him from the left. He tried to jump away quickly, but the wind sphere exploded near him. The explosion created more winds, which hit Hoka while he was in the air. The winds threw him off course, causing him to fall badly. Hoka quickly got on his feet, only to see one more wind sphere headed straight towards him. This time he didn't jump and instead tried running away. However, more and more wind spheres kept heading towards him. For the next 15 seconds, Hoka just kept dodging. The winds created by the explosion had created small scratches all over his body, and his clothes were in a very bad shape. Finally Hoka adjusted himself and began dodging the wind spheres properly. He used his Byakugan to see the wind spheres as soon as they were launched, and dodged in the right directions. Fujin thought, "Excellent. The rate at which I'm creating the wind spheres is just 1/5 of what I'm truly capable of, while their power is 1/3 of their max power. Still he's struggling so badly. Oh well, time to end this farce I guess." Fujin halved the number of wind spheres he was throwing. This allowed Hoka to close the distance between him and Fujin. He thought, finally. He slowed down. Time to finish him with my gentle fist. When the distance between the two was just 10 meters, Fujin began moving backwards. Hoka thought, it'll be annoying if he creates the distance again, and increased his speed. However, Fujin quickly made a few hand signs. Seeing Fujin making hand signs, Hoka tried to increase his speed further. However, he quickly realized and panicked. He quickly tried making hand signs for rock shield jutsu, but it was too late. Fujin, who was merely a few meters ahead of him, blew strong winds straight at him. The resultant winds blew Hoka back with force. Renjiro, who was planning to jump in, noticed, "I see. Fujin put a very low amount of chakra in the jutsu. And it seems like he also made it very mild. Had he used as much force as he displayed earlier, that jutsu could have maimed Hoka." The winds blew Hoka around 50 meters back. Though Fujin tried to limit its power, Hoka still got dragged along the ground, causing him a lot of scratches which bled. After the winds subsided, Fujin picked up a small pebble nearby and threw it at Hoka. As Fujin had expected, Hoka still got up and wanted to fight more. He noticed the pebble heading towards him and stepped aside. He was about to rush towards Fujin again. However, the pebble suddenly took a hard turn and headed straight at him. Hoka couldn't react and the pebble hit him straight on his chest. It didn't cause any damage to Hoka, but Renjiro announced, "That's enough. Winner is Fujin." On hearing that, Hoka dropped to his knees dejectedly. Though he didn't want to admit it, he knew that if Fujin had used a shuriken instead of a pebble, he'd have been injured very badly. This loss hit him hard. Fujin expected it, and so did Renjiro. During the 4 years of his academy, Hoka had never lost a fight to any of his classmates. In his second graduation exam he even beat his seniors. However, this time he was defeated, and he never even had a chance. Looking at Hoka's crestfallen expression, Renjiro sighed. "While I expected this result, I didn't think it'd be so bad. He didn't even have a chance." He then looked at Fujin and thought, "This kid though. Even though I asked him to maintain distance while fighting, I didn't expect him to do this well." He controlled the flow of the whole battle, and had Hoka moving exactly how he wanted. He even threw a sphere on Hoka's defense on purpose, just to get his guard down. There's a lot more to this kid than we thought. Hee, it makes me very interested in his future. Perhaps in the next great war he might be an important figure. He then looked at Hoka and said, "So, do you understand now why ninjutsu is important?" Hoka looked up at his sensei. Renjiro continued, "Your opponent used 2 rank D and 1 rank C jutsu. One was a movement jutsu and the other 2 were mid-range jutsu. While you only used 1 defensive rank E jutsu. You specialize in taijutsu, but you didn't even get a chance to engage your enemy in taijutsu." Hoka nodded sadly. Renjiro then put up a kind smile and said reassuringly, "I know that you like taijutsu a lot, and I support your enthusiasm for it. But you need to know ninjutsu too in order to be able to use your taijutsu effectively. There hasn't been any ninja who has become strong by only focusing on taijutsu and neglecting everything else." While he was saying that, he secretly thought, though there was one ninja who could challenge what I said. Might Due, he killed 4 swordsmen of the mist and forced the remaining 3 to run away. Just like Minato was credited for our victory against IWA, Due can be credited for our victory over Kiri. They never dared to ever fight us again after that incident. Though I would still stand by what I said to Hoka. Despite Due being as strong as he still struggled at completing normal missions. Not knowing any good genjutsu or ninjutsu and just depending on taijutsu is a bad idea. His son, despite preferring taijutsu and mostly using it, does know a decent amount of ninjutsu. But if his taijutsu keeps advancing at the same rate, he might make what I said invalid. Hoka nodded his head and said with determination, "Yes, sensei. I will work hard on my ninjutsu too." Renjiro kept his kind smile and sighed in relief internally. Finally, I got another kid on the right track. I have to admit. The old man's tactics in handling kids are the best. No wonder he was able to train 3 Sanins. Anyways, my team is finally set. He then looked at all 3 of his students and said, "I hope all of you have realized the importance of rank C jutsus by now." Fujin, Hoka and Mieko nodded. Renjiro continued, "In terms of ninjutsu, your next focus will be on learning and mastering rank C jutsus. Until I say otherwise, none of you will attempt to learn a rank B or higher jutsu." He then advised the kids more and ended the day by saying, "This will be your today's assignment. Fujin, you and Mieko will take Hoka to the village hospital and see that his wounds are tended to. And Fujin, meet me here at 2 p.m. He then flickered away. On the way to the hospital, Hoka was walking in an awkward manner. The morning training followed by getting several cuts took its toll. Seeing him wobble, Fujin said, "Sorry about that." Hoka replied, "It's okay. Don't worry about it." Mieko said, "Yeah, it's just a few cuts. Stop wobbling and walk faster." Hoka, however, replied with his usual stoic face, "Perhaps if I slept for over 2 hours during the morning workout, I might have been able to walk properly." Hearing that, Fujin chuckled, while Mieko became very embarrassed. Fujin and Mieko accompanied Hoka in the hospital. Hoka was asked to go to a ward. First, a civilian doctor arrived and cleaned all his wounds up. 5 minutes after the doctor left, a medical ninja arrived and healed all the cuts on him and advised him to take rest for the remaining day. Fujin observed the entire process, and then looked at Mieko with a hint of jealousy. He sighed thinking, if only I had the Sharingan. I'd have just copied mystical palm jutsu and been done with it. They then said farewell to each other and left. Chapter 43. Training under an elite Yanien. In the afternoon, Fujin visited the training grounds where Renjiro trained him in the basics of samurai saber techniques. Next day again began with the same workout. At 10 a.m. Renjiro said, "Today we will begin learning new jutsus. Hoka, you'll begin with Rockthorn Bed Jutsu. Fujin, you'll start with Wind Dragon Jutsu, and Mieko, you'll start with Fire Release, 4 Jutsu." The kids nodded. Renjiro then made a hand sign and prepared 3 shadow clones. Each of the shadow clones took a scroll from the main body and then took 1 genin. Hoka stayed at the same place, whereas Fujin and Mieko were moved to a different location in the training ground. The clones then gave the scroll to the genins and asked them to read and start attempting the jutsu. As the kids began to learn them, the clone constantly kept a watch and gave tips and advice when they felt the need to. The training under Renjiro continued in this manner. The morning workout remained the same. Whereas in the 10 a.m. to noon session, Renjiro alternated between training them in team formations and ninjutsu training. In the afternoons, Renjiro trained Fujin with the sword. And from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., Fujin trained by himself. He either practiced the jutsu he was learning or fought against his shadow clones. Fujin found the training under Renjiro to be very helpful. Even though Fujin was already able to perform a few jutsus without hand signs, getting tips from Renjiro on the same helped him optimize it even further. Learning new jutsu became much easier too due to the tips Renjiro gave. He learnt the Wind Dragon Jutsu in a week, Wind Gale Wolf Jutsu in 2 days, Spinning Shield of Wind Jutsu in 9 days and Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu in 3 days. The rank C jutsus provided some challenge for Fujin. Wind Dragon and Spinning Shield of Wind was difficult to learn. Wind Gale Wolf Jutsu, however, was very easy to learn after having learnt Wind Dragon Jutsu. Wind Instantaneous Body Jutsu too was very similar to Body Flicker Jutsu. Only, instead of depending on their own force, the user had to create a gust of wind and use it to move. Its range was larger than Body Flicker Jutsu. Fujin was instantly able to move 300 meters away with the aid of this jutsu. Another advantage was that it didn't leave any traces behind for the enemy to track. While right now Fujin could escape better by spamming Body Flicker Jutsu, he was sure that once he mastered this jutsu, it'll be much better at escaping than Body Flicker Jutsu. His sword skills too had improved drastically. He and Renjiro decided on the length of the swords Fujin should get. It was 57 centimeters. After 3 weeks as a genin, Fujin received the 2 samurai swords he was promised. He was called to the Hokage's office along with Renjiro and given the swords. Fujin did note the fact that Hiruzen took every opportunity he could in order to make the kids more loyal to Konoha-in the training grounds. He held the 2 swords. Even though he wasn't an expert in swords, he clearly felt that these 2 were much better in quality. On that day, Renjiro began teaching Fujin chakra flow. Fujin, who already knew it, calmed himself and acted like it was the first time he was seeing it. He thought, I am not sure I can hide my skill from him. I guess I should just not do what I know and follow his instructions to the T. Luckily for Fujin, Renjiro's methods to create chakra flow was much different from what he had tried. It was also much more suitable. So he just honestly tried that method. Due to the method being different, he struggled initially. However, once he got a hang of it, the remaining phase was extremely easy for him. In merely 3 days, he managed to flow his chakra through his new swords. He noticed, wow, this is so easy with this sword. Renjiro, on the other hand, was very shocked. He thought, the hell? He learnt chakra flow in merely 3 days? Even assuming that he trained at home, he couldn't have trained for more than 15 hours. He tried to make sense of it. Did he already know it? He tried analyzing and concluded, no, his struggle initially was very real. It's just that after he managed to do it a little bit, the rest became very easy for him. It's as if it was second nature to him. His analysis shocked him even further. He finally chuckled and thought, Master Mifune, it seems like I have picked up a student more talented than anyone in the land of iron. With that thought, he began laughing loudly. Ha 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 ha. That laugh did attract Fujin's attention. He thought, did he notice? No, that shouldn't be it. I guess it's my talent. Sigh, there was no other choice. Still, he doesn't need to laugh like a retard. Renjiro noticed Fujin looking at him with a concerned look, as if he was wondering whether his sensei needed some medical attention. He said, don't worry about it, kid. I just recalled an old geezer who was bragging about the talents in his village. Anyways, now that you have learnt chakra flow, we'll work towards mastering it. The intensity of the training too will increase a lot. Fujin nodded. From that day onwards, Renjiro became much more enthusiastic in teaching the samurai saber techniques to Fujin. That also meant that the training became much tougher. It almost became half as intense as the morning workout. Mieko and Hoka too made a lot of progress. Mieko learnt all her jutsus within the first 2 weeks, whereas Hoka needed a month to learn his. Learning body flicker made Hoka a much better ninja. By the end of the month, Mieko finally managed to get through the entire morning workout. As soon as she did that, Renjiro asked her to start activating the training seal to 1% of its maximum capacity. Poor girl's joy at completing the workout quickly turned to horror. He had increased the pressure on Hoka's and Fujin's bodies too by making them increase the pressure of their seals to 32% and 15% respectively. /N, I'll call that seal training seal from here onwards. Probably should have named it when I introduced it. Apart from the personal improvements, the squad had also improved as a team. Within the first week, all the basic 4-man and 3-man formations were drilled into the trio. After that, Renjiro began working on their teamwork and combination attacks. A lot of exercises and spars were conducted to improve teamwork. For combination attacks, Fujin and Mieko were made to combine Wind Dragon and Fire Dragon jutsus. It took a few days to learn, but the result was excellent. The Fire Dragon was enhanced by the Wind Dragon, nearly doubling its size. Its power was around 4 times the power of both the jutsus individually. The dragon could shoot wind explosion jutsu from its mouth, however, instead of normal winds, it was made of incredibly hot winds. On their first experiment, they nearly caused a forest fire. Luckily, Renjiro was closely monitoring this training and quickly used waterfall jutsu to douse the fire. Seeing that, Fujin thought, "Isn't this very similar to Scorch style? I guess only the power is lacking." Fujin looked at Renjiro and asked, "Sensei, is it possible for only one ninja to perform this combination jutsu? And I mean without using clones?" Mieko was very intrigued by this question and paid attention. Renjiro answered, "Yes, it is possible. You have to use both the nature transformations at the same time and release them together. One way to do it is by doing hand signs for Fire Dragon Jutsu with one hand and for Wind Dragon Jutsu with the other. But don't worry about it for now. This is too advanced. You can't do it right now." This answer surprised Fujin. He quickly asked, "But sensei, wouldn't using 2 elements at the same time be a Kekkai Genkai? How can anyone do that without having the bloodline?" Renjiro answered, "This ain't Kekkai Genkai. It's merely using 2 elements to complement each other. For example, the Yuki clan has Ice Release Kekkai Genkai. Ice Release is a combination of water and wind. However, if you combine wind and water dragons, all you get is a water dragon that cuts very sharply. There is no sign whatsoever of any ice forming. Combination jutsus merely enhance each other, whereas Kekkai Genkai bring a qualitative change to create something very different." On hearing that answer, Fujin fell into his thoughts. "I see. So it's possible to combine jutsus in this manner. I didn't know it was possible. This does open up more options for me. I guess I need to start training other elements too. Wind works great with both fire and water. I wonder if it's possible to make it work along with lightning too. Sadly, I don't think there's a lot of scope in using the wind element with earth. I wonder when I'll be ready to learn this though. Would showing off all my cards make him teach it to me? Though not having hidden cards in a world as dangerous as this will suck," he asked. "Sensei, when do you think I'll be ready for this? If I learn a second element now, would I be able to do this combination jutsu by myself?" Renjiro shook his head and said, "Don't think about this right now. Think about this only after you become a jounin. Your skills in chakra control, chakra molding will need to improve a lot before you begin practicing this. The amount of chakra you have will also need to be much higher. So as I said earlier, for the time being, you'll only be mastering rank C jutsus." Fujin nodded dejectedly. Mieko too hung her head in disappointment on hearing this. Chapter 44, Combination Jutsus. One day, when the 10 a.m. session began, Renjiro said, "I have Tao."
Look, if you've actually made it this far into the video and you're still here, come on then, hit subscribe. And honestly, if you think a friend of yours would like this, go on and share it with them. It really helps out. Right, I'm done. I'll get out of your hair now so you can get back to the good stuff. But seriously, stick around till the end. It's well worth it.
GHTU1 combination jutsu. And you can see how strong it is. I want you guys to think about more jutsus you can use in combination with each other. It doesn't have to be as strong as Fire Wind Dragon Jutsu, but it should increase your capabilities in some way. So think about it, but don't experiment. I'll meet you guys at 11". He then flickered away, without giving anyone a chance to say anything. Hoka said, "So what do we do?" Fujin, who had already thought a few over the past couple of weeks, said, "Well, let's just think about it, and then discuss to see if everyone is fine with the idea." Mieko said, "All right." After around 15 minutes, Mieko said, "Hoka, can your water element mix with my fire element?" Hoka asked in a confused manner, "But how won't my water douse your fire?" Mieko smirked and said, "No, it won't. Fish Spit Jutsu is the only one you have that can generate a small stream of water, and it is very weak compared to my jutsus. So my fire jutsu will evaporate all your water and create a lot of steam. Hoka fell into a thought after hearing it. Fujin was quite surprised with this suggestion. He thought, I didn't expect this brat to come up with something like this. He said, yeah, it'll generate a lot of steam, but can either of you control it? Both shook their heads. Fujin replied, in that case that can only be used to create a cover and hide ourselves. Mieko sighed dejectedly and began thinking again. After a couple of minutes, Fujin said, I have one idea. We can create a double-layer defense. My spinning shield of wind jutsu can stop and reflect all thrown weapons and some weaker ninjutsu. However, if the enemy uses strong ninjutsu, it'll be breached. So my idea is to create a shield of wind, and right after that, Hoka will create a rock shield behind the shield to cover us further. Hoka thought and nodded, yes, that could work. However, Mieko groaned and said, hey, don't leave me out. Fujin chuckled and said, actually I have one more idea. Hoka, can you use your rock shield jutsu? Hoka was confused and asked, but didn't sensei tell us to not test anything? Fujin replied, he said that to prevent us from causing an accident. Just using rock shield jutsu will be fine. Also, quickly move behind a few meters after using the jutsu. Hoka nodded and got up. He performed the jutsu and quickly jumped back. Fujin thought, not fast enough. He then said, alright, do it again. Only this time I'll throw a small pebble on you. Dodge that by moving backwards. Hoka made the hand signs and slammed his hands on the ground. Fujin waited for the jutsu to be completed. As soon as it was completed, he threw the pebble on Hoka. Hoka quickly dodged back. Fujin nodded and said, alright, that's fast enough. Mieko asked, so what's the big idea? Fujin replied, I'm thinking that both of us should learn this jutsu too. If we do, then as soon as Hoka uses the jutsu and jumps back, one of us can create another rock shield behind his and repeat the same. This way a multi-tiered defense can be made on the fly. Another idea is if all three of us can channel our chakra in the same rock shield, then will the shield become sturdier or will it become larger? If that works, then it'll be very useful too. Both Hoka and Mieko nodded and agreed. They began brainstorming once again and came up with a few more ideas. At 11 a.m., Renjiro reappeared. He asked, so what did you guys think of? Fujin started, we came up with an idea of a multi-tiered defense. The basic idea is for me to use spinning shield of wind jutsu and Hoka to use the rock shield jutsu to create the rock shield behind my shield of wind. And we can create more tiers by having Hoka move back as soon as he creates the jutsu, and then Mieko could create another rock shield and repeat the same. Renjiro was actually surprised by this idea and asked, what exactly are you planning to defend from? Mieko and Hoka looked at Fujin, who replied, a very strong jutsu. Renjiro rebuked him, saying, if an enemy uses a jutsu so strong that you need to do this, then you are out of your league and need to retreat. Also, it's never a good idea to have everyone in the squad defending. Also, rock shield jutsu isn't the strongest defensive jutsu. There are many more which can do a much better job. For now, the combination of spinning shield of wind jutsu and one rock shield jutsu is enough. However, if you and Mieko want to learn rock shield jutsu, go for it. It's quite handy in combat. Fujin nodded and sighed internally, I guess too much defense isn't a good thing after all. He said, another idea we came up with is for Hoka to use stone shuriken jutsu, and for me to control them using projectile control jutsu. Renjiro nodded and said, that should work. Anything else? This time Mieko answered, Sensei, I came up with the idea of Fujin throwing his wind explosion jutsus within my fireball jutsu. So the range of the explosion of my fireball will be extended considerably. The winds caused by wind explosion jutsu's explosion will make the flames of fireball go in all the directions randomly. Renjiro nodded again and said, that's a good idea. However, Fujin, you will have to make your wind explosion jutsu much stronger if you want to help Mieko pull this off. Fujin nodded and said, yes, sensei. Hoka suddenly said, Sensei, I too came up with an idea. My idea is to throw stone shurikens within Fujin's great breakthrough jutsu and Mieko's fireball jutsu. That way, more chaos can be created and the enemy will have to be careful of the stone shurikens within those jutsus too. Renjiro replied, I see. I won't recommend throwing your stone shurikens within the fireball jutsu. If the enemy dodges the fireball, then your jutsu will be dodged too. And if the fireball jutsu hits the enemy, then it'll do sufficient damage by itself anyways. Hoka nodded. Seeing that none of the kids were speaking, Renjiro asked, "Any more ideas?" All the kids shook their heads. Renjiro replied, "Alright, that's sufficient for now. Begin practicing these combination jutsus. Fujin, make a shadow clone and have it practice the combination of stone shuriken jutsu and projectile control jutsu with Hoka. You and Mieko will practice together." The Genins dispersed according to the instructions of their sensei. Renjiro too made a couple of shadow clones to keep a watch on them. Hoka and Fujin's clone weren't going to be an issue, however Fujin and Mieko were sure to start a few fires. He had no doubts regarding that. Hoka and Fujin's shadow clone moved to a different spot. The clone moved to different trees and marked a large X on them. They looked at each other and nodded. Both made the hand signs. Hoka launched his stone shurikens towards the various X's Fujin had marked, and the clone tried to control those shurikens to hit the marks. However, the first problem which Fujin knew occurred. Hoka looked at Fujin and said, "So you really can control only 9 shurikens?" Fujin nodded and said, "Yeah, just as I had said. And because these are stone shurikens and not as well made as a normal shuriken, controlling it is slightly more difficult. Anyways, let's try the second approach." Hoka nodded and launched stone shuriken jutsu again. This time, Fujin used projectile control jutsu to manipulate all the shurikens. He used it to change the direction of the shurikens towards the left. Hoka observed, this time all the shurikens changed direction. However, only 3 hit the mark, unlike 16 last time. Fujin nodded and replied, "Yeah, if I try to control all the shurikens, I can only move them in one direction. So there's not much control on any one shuriken. In fact, it also messes up the aim you have taken." Suddenly Renjiro's clone flickered behind Fujin and Hoka. 1 month of constant exposure to Renjiro suddenly flickering behind them had made them accustomed to it. Renjiro asked, "So which approach are you going to use and in which scenario?" "Hoka, you answer first." Hoka began thinking. After a couple of minutes he said, "The first approach will be more useful if the number of enemies is less. The enemy will first have to dodge my initial aim, and then worry about the shurikens Fujin controls. The second method will be more useful when we are facing a lot of enemies. Sudden change in direction of all shurikens can result in a few casualties. Also, even if the enemy avoids it, they'll need to pay more attention to it, giving us more time." Renjiro nodded and looked at Fujin. Fujin replied, "Same answer. Just that I should try and improve my control even further. In the first scenario, the result will probably be satisfactory. However, the second scenario still has a lot of scope for improvement. For instance, if after I change direction of the shurikens, if I can then take control of a few shurikens to manipulate them even further, then I am sure I'll get some hits in and it won't be all just luck-based." Renjiro said, "Good, so keep practicing." Over at Mieko and Fujin, they too had begun their practice. Their practice was very straightforward. Mieko launched fireball jutsu, and Fujin threw 2 wind spheres at them from the rear. The wind sphere distorted the flames a bit, but it wasn't an issue. However, before the fireball exploded, the wind spheres left the fireball from the front. The fireball exploded as it normally did. The wind spheres, however, exploded with a lot more force due to the air being heated up and caused a small heat wave. Mieko spoke in an annoying manner, "Hey, your jutsu speed was too fast." Fujin countered, "Yours was too slow." This earned him a glare from the little girl. Fujin shrugged and said, "Let's try again." This time Fujin matched the timing properly, and both the jutsus exploded at the same time when the wind spheres were still in the fireball. The result was a bit surprising. Mieko said, "The power of the explosion decreased." Fujin nodded and added, "But its range increased. And the increase is totally random. In some directions, the flames extended twice more than usual, whereas in some directions, the range of flames was 7 times as high as usual." Suddenly, a jet of water was launched to douse the fires caused by the explosion. Renjiro's clone looked at them and said, "We are changing the location. Follow me." Fujin and Mieko ran behind the clone. On the way, the clone asked, "So what are your thoughts on this jutsu?" Fujin replied, "Unpredictable. The enemy won't be able to guess the direction of the flames. If he gets careless, he'll end up with a few burns. Even if he is lucky or skilled enough to dodge them all, he'll be put under a lot of pressure." Mieko agreed, "Yes. Once he gets burned, we can dominate him. Renjiro asked, any scope for improvement? Fujin and Mieko began thinking. After a few seconds, Fujin replied, I am wondering whether the explosion's direction can be controlled. I think that the position of the wind spheres within the fireball is what controls the direction of the explosion. For example, if the wind spheres are to the front of the fireball, then maybe the flames move more in the forward direction. If I know the direction in which the enemy will dodge, I can place the wind spheres in an appropriate position so that the flames move to his new location. While Fujin was talking, Renjiro stopped moving. They had arrived on a riverbank. Renjiro thought, as expected. He replied, good. However, don't forget that even your wind explosion jutsu by itself is very random. So you won't be able to control the direction by yourself. He then looked at Mieko and said, if you two want to improve this combination further, then it'll depend on how well you can analyze the explosion with your Sharingans, Mieko. Mieko nodded, yes sensei. I'll improve it to its limits. Renjiro nodded and looked at the river. Fujin and Mieko followed his line of sight. Renjiro said, all your explosions must happen over that river. No more fires. Both nodded awkwardly and continued their training. A/N, more ideas for combination jutsus are welcomed. Chapter 45, The First Mission. Exactly 1 month had passed since Renjiro had begun training his genins. After the morning workout and some rest, Renjiro announced, today we'll do our first mission as a team. The squad reacted as soon as they heard that. Hoka said loudly, finally. Mieko too excitedly said, yes. Now I'll show what an Uchiha can do. Sensei, what'll be our first mission? Will we fight with any enemy villages? Like Kumo or IWA? Hoka quickly followed up, yes sensei, what will our mission be? I want to use my taijutsu to show how strong Konoha is to our enemies. Fujin looked at them and saw, whoa. Their eyes really are sparkling. I need to learn how to do that. Fujin just maintained an excited expression but didn't say anything. His teammates' reactions made him feel very awkward. He thought, if only they knew what our first mission will be. I wonder if all the adults have an unspoken truce to not mention this to any kid. Is it because they don't want to discourage anyone, or is it just the age-old human behavior I had to go through this, so I want you to go through it too? Probably the second case. Just looking at Renjiro's smug face says it all. Renjiro thought, it never gets old. Seeing fresh genins so enthusiastic about their first mission. Now I wonder if that cat has gone missing again or not. He said, the mission will be given by Lord Hokage. So wait till we reach there to know which mission you'll be doing. They began moving towards the Hokage's office. Hoka and Mieko ran at a lot faster pace than usual. On the way, Fujin thought, I didn't think we'd need to wait 1 whole month before taking our first mission. Such intense training for a whole month. I guess my timing of transmigration was really lucky. Having missed the Third War and Kurama's attack, and growing at a time when Konoha is lacking and manpower. I hope that training under Renjiro continues for a long time. Though it doesn't leave me with much free time, it has been very helpful in increasing my strength. The team arrived at the Hokage building and had to wait a few minutes to enter the Hokage's office. On entering the office, everyone respectfully greeted Hiruzen, Lord Hokage. Hiruzen, like always, had multiple stacks of papers on his table. He looked at Team 3 and said, oh, so you guys are finally doing your first mission. He stared at Renjiro while saying that. However, Renjiro just shrugged and ignored the stare. Hiruzen sighed internally thinking, he messed up all the protocols. No missions for his squad for a whole month. The only other instance like this was when Orochimaru didn't make his squad do any missions at all for 6 months. Well, at least he agreed to take a few rank D missions unlike my student. He then looked at his assistant and asked, so which missions do we have? His assistant pulled a paper out and handed it to him. Hiruzen looked at it and said, Lady Seigo wants a squad to weed her garden. This will be your mission. He then smiled kindly and said, do the job properly. Ensure that she gives us good feedback and make Konoha proud. Hiruzen's words shocked Mieko and Hoka. Hoka was muttering softly, we etaga. Right en. Mieko too muttered something similar. Fujin was shocked too. However, it was for a different reason. He really admired Hiruzen now. He thought, damn. He said that with such a straight face and with such a kind smile. Screw Danzo, this old man here is the real evil incarnate. It's no wonder that despite being so scheming and commanding such a strong force, Danzo never could do anything to Hiruzen. Poor guy never even had a chance. It almost makes me pity him. Renjiro saw his Genin's reactions and chuckled. He thought, it's a pity that the cat isn't missing right now. He grabbed the paper, saw the address and said, "Follow me." The Genins followed him, however, this time Mieko and Hoka were moving very slowly. On reaching the estate, Renjiro asked the guard to call Lady Seigo. Fujin observed the estate. It was huge. Mieko and Hoka didn't have much of a reaction as their clan estates were even larger. In a couple of minutes a lady arrived. She was around 40 to 45 years old, 5 feet 9 inches tall, had long blonde hair, looked very mature and carried herself in a proper manner. She greeted them, "Welcome Lord Renjiro. It's a great honor to have you here." Renjiro nodded and handed her the paper. She then looked at the kids and said, "So these strong ninjas will complete my missions. I am very fortunate to get ninjas as capable as you." Mieko and Hoka cheered up a bit on hearing the praise. However, Fujin could clearly understand that she was teasing them. He sighed internally, there is no need for this mission to be given to ninjas. The only reason why she did that is for her own amusement. "Sigh, these rich old ladies need to get a better hobby," she said. "Follow me, I'll take you to the garden." Team Renjiro followed her. They went behind the huge mansion. And soon the 3 Genins were shocked. Lady Seigo kindly said, "This is the garden you have to weed." Fujin was speechless. He thought, garden? How the fuck is this a garden? Who the fuck has a garden that is more than an acre in area? Hoka muttered, "This is a garden?" Mieko almost lashed out and yelled, "How the hell is this a garden? This is." However, she was held in place by Renjiro. Lady Seigo suddenly showed a sad face and said, "I actually wanted it to be at least 5 acres. Sadly, that much land wasn't available in Konoha." It once again left the Genins speechless. Mieko was pissed even further. Renjiro just chuckled and said, "That's enough talk. Get to work." The Genins began walking forward. Mieko softly asked Fujin, "Hey, can we use Fire Wind Dragon Jutsu?" Hoka perked up on hearing that. Fujin too was very intrigued by that idea, though he'd definitely not act upon it. However, Renjiro heard that and announced loudly, "No using any elemental ninjutsu. No using any tools. And increase the pressure of your training seals, Mieko by 1%, Fujin by 2.5% and Hoka by 5%. Mieko hung her head and walked forward. Fujin said, "Let's divide the garden into 3 parts and clear each." Hoka and Mieko reluctantly nodded and got to work. Their muscles still ached from the morning workout. And they still had more work to do under higher pressure. While they were working, Lady Seijo returned to the mansion. She entered a balcony that faced the garden and asked her servants to arrange a chair, an umbrella and a few snacks for her and Renjiro. She sat there monitoring the kids doing the work. That pissed the Genins even more. Fujin muttered under his breath, "First that Hiruzen and now this lady. The Tao of shamelessness is very, very, very strong in this world." Weeding the garden continued. Fujin got done with his part in an hour and a half. He then returned to where Renjiro was. While he was returning, both Hoka and Mieko looked at him with angry gazes. He thought, should I help them out? After a few seconds he dismissed that thought. Nope, there's no need to. He just ignored them and left the garden. He found a clean spot and sat down. Unfortunately for Fujin, Renjiro flickered behind him and said, "Until they are done, run around this estate. I want at least 1 round per minute." That nearly triggered him. What the fuck? It ain't my fault that I did the work faster. Luckily, he held it in, put his head down and began running. Each round was over 1 kilometer long. After 15 minutes, Hoka joined him. Mieko worked for another half an hour. Both Fujin and Hoka were sure that she was delaying on purpose and sent her a few glares. When she was done, Fujin and Hoka stopped after completing that round and glared at Mieko. Mieko smirked thinking, "Serves you right for finishing before me." That smirk pissed Hoka, but Fujin just sighed and said, "Who would have thought that the mighty Uchiha would need 2 hours and 15 minutes to merely weed a garden?" Hoka quickly nodded and agreed, "Yes, this was so unexpected. Is this what she meant by 'I'll show what an Uchiha can do'?" That jibe made Mieko go red with anger and embarrassment. She was about to reply angrily when Renjiro stopped her. Lady Sago stepped forward and said, "Thank you for clearing the weeds in my garden, young ninjas. You guys did an amazing job." This earned her a glare from all the three Genins, but she maintained her smile. She then handed Renjiro a paper and they left her estate. They returned to the Hokage building. Renjiro led his Genins to a room on the first floor. He handed the paper to an employee there. The employee checked the paper, stamped and filed it. He then gave Renjiro a white packet and they left the room. Renjiro then led them to another room. There were a few more employees working here. One of them was a Chunin while the others were just normal civilians. Renjiro said, "Remember this room. In the future, if you ever want to take any missions, you can come here and ask the Chunin who is in charge here. He will assign you your mission depending on your preference, past performance and ranks." The Genins nodded. They then moved to the ground floor. Renjiro said, "That's it for today. From now onwards we'll be doing one mission every week. The remaining training continues as usual. Fujin, on the mission day you won't have training in samurai saber techniques." Fujin nodded. Renjiro then took out the white packet he had received earlier. He said, "This is the reward for our mission. We'll be splitting it 40-20-20-20. 40% for me and 20% for each one of you. When you do missions with others in the future, remember that this is how the rewards are usually split. The leader gets more than the other squad members." The Genins nodded, but all three had the same thought. "But you didn't do any work at all, sensei." However, no one spoke it out loud. After splitting the rewards, the squad dispersed on his way to Yakiniku Q. Fujin thought, 10k Rio reward for a 2 hours job. If I had made clones and worked with them instead of my teammates, I'd have finished faster. Not bad, but not as fast as earning money by selling scrolls. Either way, getting 2k Rio per week would be much better than the 1k Rio per month they provided me earlier. Though it won't be enough to allow me to make as big a purchase as I did earlier. I wonder if I should do a lot of rank D missions in a day or two sometime later to show that I've earned money via legitimate means. Or should I come clean with my ability to create storage scrolls? He thought for a bit and decided, no, right now Renjiro barely gives me any free time. If I say that I'll study Fuinjutsu in the evening, then that'll be considered suspicious or stupid. I should leave it till my training under Renjiro is completed or the training time is decreased. He is an elite jounin after all. I don't think Konoha can allow him to train 3 Genins for very long. While thinking, he had already reached the restaurant. He went in and made the order. While waiting for the food to be delivered, he thought, this world is pretty dangerous. While initially I was just being cautious, I'm now glad that I was so cautious and kept most of my abilities hidden. Even ignoring the crazy strong abilities so many here have, just the mere shamelessness of these people is alarming. Hiruzen saying what he said with a straight face, Renjiro taking 40% of the reward, today's client sitting on the balcony to enjoy the misery of little kids. The Tao of shamelessness is crazy strong in this world. Their skins are thicker than the Hokage monuments. The same will also apply to the enemies. Sigh, I hope Obito and Nagato play according to the script. If they don't, then it'll be chaos. The meal arrived. Fujin picked up the meat with tongs and laid it on the charcoal brazier. Waiting for the meat to roast, he thought, well, no point in worrying about these things. There is nothing I can do about it anyways. Let's just hope for the best. Concluding his thoughts, he turned his focus on his lunch. Chapter 46, Triggered. The next day, after the morning workout, Renjiro had another discussion with his team. He said, you have made good progress over the last month. So I'll now tell you how to progress further. The Genins nodded and listened attentively. Renjiro looked at Mieko and said, the jutsus you know currently are sufficient enough. So you don't need to learn any more ninjutsu. Just focus on mastering the ones you know currently. Especially fire release, for jutsu. In addition to ninjutsu, you also need to learn genjutsu. So in your free time, ask your parents or clan elders to teach you more Sharingan-based genjutsu. And keep working on your physique. You need to be able to complete the morning workout while enduring 10% pressure from your training seal. Mieko nodded and said, yes, sensei. I'll work hard. He then looked at Fujin and asked, have you decided on your second element? Fujin nodded and said, yes, sensei, I have decided to choose earth as my second element. Renjiro nodded and asked, any ideas on which jutsus you want to learn? Fujin replied, I've decided to learn Rock Shield Jutsu, Earth Instantaneous Body Jutsu, and Earth Holding Jutsu. Renjiro asked, why? Fujin replied, Rock Shield Jutsu will provide me with a very good defense. Earth Instantaneous Body Jutsu is a movement jutsu. And I can use Earth Holding Jutsu to trap the enemies, or keep me and my squad on the ground. Renjiro thought for a few seconds and said, Rock Shield Jutsu will be good for you. But why do you want to learn Earth Instantaneous Body Jutsu? You already have 2 movement jutsus. Also, Earth Holding Jutsu is very slow to actually trap anyone capable enough. So it isn't very useful. So why do you still want to learn it? Fujin replied, well, there's no harm in learning more movement jutsus. Also, escaping through the ground will also provide a good defense as well as stealth. If the enemy isn't a sensor, it can also be used to sneak up on the enemy. As for Earth Holding Jutsu, my main aim is to split the enemy's attention and have him keep an eye on the ground. Especially if I can do it without hand signs. I also wonder if I can suppress its chakra signature to perform it very stealthily. If I can trap the enemy momentarily, it'll be enough for us to incapacitate him. Renjiro thought, nice thinking once again. Though learning a 3rd movement jutsu is wasteful even with his explanation. Renjiro nodded and said, alright then. Rock Shield Jutsu you can learn by yourself. The remaining 2 will be learnt under my supervision. In addition to these, we'll work on mastering the jutsus you already know. Finally, Renjiro looked at Hoka and said, Hoka, your current status in ninjutsu is much better than before we began the training. However, it's still not enough. Hoka nodded and paid attention. Renjiro continued, you will learn 4 more Earth Release Jutsus. They will be Boulder Throw Jutsu, Quicksand Jutsu, Stone Spear Jutsu, and Earth Instantaneous Body Jutsu. Boulder Throw is a mid-range offensive jutsu. Quicksand is a trapping jutsu. Stone Spear is a mid-range jutsu and Earth Instantaneous Body is a movement jutsu. Hoka sighed and nodded. Renjiro smiled and said, don't worry. These would be the only rank C jutsus I'll force you to master. I will advise you to learn more in the future, however the decision is in your hands. Learning rank C water release jutsus will help you. In addition, once you have mastered these earth jutsus, you should learn 2 rank B earth release jutsus. The first is Earth Dragon Jutsu, which will increase your capabilities in fighting a ranged battle. And Earth Wall Jutsu, which is one of the best defensive jutsus in existence. They will complement your Gentle Fist style P. Perfectly, and you can then focus entirely on your taijutsu. Hoka showed a look of determination and replied, yes, sensei. I'll master these ninjutsu. Renjiro continued, in addition to your ninjutsu and taijutsu training, we will also focus on your genjutsu training. He wanted to continue, however. Hoka's expression was a sight to see after hearing that. Renjiro chuckled and continued, whether you learn genjutsu or not will be left for later. For now I will teach you how to counter genjutsu. Renjiro's chuckling and his gaze gained the attention of his students. Both Fujin and Mieko looked at Hoka and had a laugh. The training under Renjiro continued. Over the next 6 weeks, Fujin and Hoka had got all the jutsus down and were practicing to master them. Fujin could now do all the newly learnt rank C jutsus with just one single hand seal. Renjiro's instructions while learning Earth Release Jutsus were much better as compared to Wind Release Jutsus. He also had a more in-depth explanation regarding how chakra should be molded and how to do it faster. Due to this, Fujin's speed of learning Earth Release Rank C Jutsus was almost comparable to when he was learning Wind Release Jutsus. The practice of combination jutsus too continued, and they got much faster at performing them. For genjutsu, Renjiro's clones started by casting rank D genjutsu on Hoka and Fujin. Within a couple of days, Fujin was able to break them. Renjiro's clone then moved on to rank C genjutsu for him. He began breaking the rank C genjutsu in a couple of weeks and was currently working on breaking rank B genjutsu. Hoka needed a month before he could break rank D genjutsu. Fujin's swordplay too had come a long way. All the basics of samurai saber techniques were drilled into him by Renjiro. They were now moving on to the more advanced maneuvers. Renjiro had informed him that after he got these advanced forms down, he'll teach him the flying slashes. In these weeks, they had done 6 more rank D missions. It started with bathing the dogs in the Inazuka kennels. Renjiro pranked his genins by telling them that they would have to clean all the excrement in the kennels, causing Mieko to flicker away. only to be caught by Renjiro and carried over by the back of her neck. On hearing the real mission, the kids sighed in relief. The next one was finding the dreaded cat, who scratched Mieko's face all over and bit Hoka a couple of times. Fujin now understood why everyone struggled so much to catch the cat. It was a freaking ninja cat and was a master in sneaking and using diversions. Even with that, the mission wouldn't have been challenging. However, Renjiro added a condition. The Genins weren't allowed to walk or run on the ground and were only allowed to run on the walls. If there weren't any walls, they had to create rock shields in order to create such a surface. It was followed by cleaning all the emergency shelters. Fujin figured that it was the village's way to make them remember all the shelters around Konoha. After that, they had to deliver mail all over Konoha to various clans and nobles. It was followed by babysitting a couple of Yamanaka kids. And lastly, they had to sow seeds in a farm. Observing his teammates, Fujin was sure that they were very close to completely triggering and making a scene. One difference Fujin noted was that after the first mission, the remaining missions weren't handed to them by Hiruzen. They were instead collected from the mission room on the first floor of the Hokage Tower. Fujin thought, didn't Hiruzen assign all the missions personally in Naruto? So why not for us? Or perhaps why for them? He thought a bit and concluded, either he only assigns the first mission, or he assigned their missions due to their importance. Naruto was a Jinchuriki, Sasuke was the last Uchiha as well as the Uchiha heir. And Team 8 and 10 were entirely made of heirs of important clans in Konoha. I guess he had to take responsibility in ensuring their safety. One day after the morning workout, Mieko asked Fujin and Hoka, "Hey, I saw a few ninjas from other villages earlier. So the Chunin exams will be conducted soon. Do you think that we will participate too?" That gained the attention of both her teammates. Hoka excitedly said, "I hope we do. I would like to fight against the ninjas from other villages." Fujin thought, if I recall right, the squad needs to have completed 8 missions before being eligible. I wonder if Renjiro planned this way so that our team won't be eligible for the exam and hence no one would pressurize him. Seeing Fujin in thought, Mieko asked, "What are you thinking about?" Fujin replied, "I heard that Chunin exams have a lot of danger. So I really doubt they would allow us to participate so early." Mieko angrily replied, "Hey, we are ready to take the risks." Hoka nodded and said, "I agree. We are ninjas, how can we back down from a little risk?" Fujin shook his head due to his teammates' naivety. He replied, "Yeah, but we are still only babysitting and cleaning dust." That statement downed their moods. Soon they went on a mini-rant. And looked at Renjiro begrudgingly when he appeared, causing him to raise an eyebrow and ask, "What happened?" Mieko and Hoka merely humphed and looked in the other direction. Despite waiting for a few days, Renjiro didn't inform them about the exam. The next day, Hoka informed his team, "I heard that Teru and Yuri will be participating in this exam." Fujin asked, "Oh, didn't they participate earlier?" This time, Mieko replied, "No, Yuri didn't participate in the earlier exams." Fujin nodded and said, "I see, I guess we won't be participating in the exam until next year too." Right then Renjiro appeared and Mieko quickly asked him, "Sensei, can we participate in the Chunin exam?" Renjiro shook his head and said, "No, you guys aren't ready yet." Mieko replied, "Why? We are very ready, Sensei." Renjiro denied her again and said, "I'll be the judge to decide that. No more questions." The next day, when they visited the mission room, the Chunin in charge searched for a mission and said, "Team Renjiro, your next mission is to babysit the newborn of Lord." However, he was cut. Mieko finally had enough. She yelled, "Hey you! Why the hell do you always give us such lame missions? Which ninja babysits kids? Get a nanny to do that." The Chunin replied with authority, "Brat, you are just a..." However, he was again cut, this time by Hoka. He commented with a stoic face, "I agree with Mieko. This is a mockery of our skills." Fujin observed Renjiro's reactions and saw that he was chuckling. He thought, I guess we are finally moving on to rank C missions. Oh well, I might as well say something then. The Chunin was pissed at being cut twice. He angrily began saying, "Now listen you brats. Poor guy was cut again." Fujin commented, "You know mister, in the last mission we were very worried that Mieko would burn the whole farm down. Even though Sensei can use water release jutsus, it would have still caused a lot of damage. I am really worried what will happen if you make us babysit a little kid today." The Chunin shuddered when he understood what Fujin was implying. Renjiro was very amused too. He thought, well, I was planning on making them do a few more rank D missions. But if they are able to win a debate against a Chunin official, I won't mind starting to do rank C missions now. If Fujin knew that Renjiro didn't plan on taking rank C missions just yet, he'd have kicked himself for opening his mouth. As boring as rank D missions were, they took very little time and left a lot more time for training and didn't have any danger. The Chunin was left speechless and didn't know how to reply. He opened his mouth a couple of times but didn't manage to say anything. He looked at Renjiro, who nodded his head. He relented and said, "All right, let me search for a rank C mission for you." When he moved to grab the rank C mission file, Renjiro stated, "Just pick out a few bandit clearing missions in the vicinity of the village. Would be preferable if the bandit bases are near each other." The Chunin nodded and searched his file. He soon took out 4 papers from the file and handed them to Renjiro. Renjiro read them. He then looked at his squad and said, "We'll do our first rank C mission today. Meet me at the main gate in a couple of hours. Pack up for a week-long journey." The Genins nodded and dispersed. Chapter 47, Raiding the Bandits. After leaving, Fujin went to his home and sat down in a meditative position. He thought, finally I am going out of this village. So what do I prepare? As per the protocol, the ration bars will be arranged by the squad leader. So food wouldn't be a concern. Though I suppose I should pack up the ration bars I have with me as well. Regarding the weapons, I still have the stock that the academy had provided us with. Though some of them are damaged. I guess I should buy 12 shurikens and 3 kunais. That'll cost me 7k Ryo. I probably should buy a couple of explosion tags too. That'll be most of the money I earned from missions. Yeah, money, I need to carry all my money with me preferably. It can go in the spare waist bag. Of course I still carry the stock I had purchased earlier and always carry them with me. As for the swords, I guess they'll be hanging on my waist. Though I do have the wristbands, explaining where I got them will be troublesome. So I'll let them be in my spare waist bag. He then meditated for half an hour and then got packed up to leave the house. On his right leg he had a leg pouch. It had 6 shurikens and 2 kunais. In addition, it also had 48 shurikens, 6 normal kunais and 6 kunais with explosion tags attached to them in the seals in it. On his waist he carried his waist bag. He had 8 shurikens, 3 kunais and a small scroll in it. The scroll contained basic items like rope, tape, wire and first aid kit. The bag had 7 storage seals on it. In one he had stored his spare waist bag and leg pouch. Another had his stock of ration bars. There was an additional first aid kit in one. The 4th seal stored a few bottles filled with drinking water in it. The remaining seals were left empty for now. He then visited a weapon shop to get the stuff he wanted to buy. After buying them, he visited Ichiraku for an early lunch. He then went to the main gate and sat on a branch of a nearby tree. Hoka and Mieko arrived around 15 minutes before the couple of hours were up. On arriving, they both spotted and approached Fujin. Fujin thought, wow, talk about being excited. Renjiro arrived 5 minutes after them. Renjiro asked, "Are you guys prepared?" Everyone replied in sync, "Yes, sensei." Renjiro then grabbed 3 scrolls from his bag and tossed one to each of his students. They began wondering, what's in the scroll? Renjiro said, "This is a gift from me to you guys. Each scroll contains 100 shurikens, 24 kunais, 6 giant shurikens, 12 explosion tags and 60 packets of ration bars that will expire after 12 months. Fujin, your scroll has a couple of spare swords too, though they ain't as good as your current swords. I don't know what protocols they taught you, however, this is the least you should always carry with yourself while leaving the village, irrespective of what you expect your team leader to carry." The kids were a bit shocked by this gift. Especially Fujin. His mind went blank for a second as he quickly calculated, 100-300-100k, 24-72-72k, 6-18-54k, 12-36-27k. That's worth over 250k Ryo. And that's without considering the swords and the ration bars. Was I wrong about him being shameless? Everyone quickly thanked Renjiro for the gift. Renjiro continued, "Though I have gifted this to you, from here onwards you'll be responsible for maintaining this stock. So don't waste them and refill them after you complete your mission. Of course don't be a miser with them. Your life and the mission is more important." All 3 kids nodded. They then left the village. Renjiro said, "Our mission is to clear a few bandit bases around Shakuba town, which is northwest of Konoha." He then asked, "Do you have your training seals activated?" All the 3 kids nodded. Renjiro said, "Deactivate them. Never keep those training seals active outside Konoha. You never know who is out there to kill you, and those seals could become the reason for your death." Fujin and Mieko nodded, but Hoka asked, "But sensei, can't you just protect us from any such danger? It seems a waste to not train our body during this journey." Renjiro shook his head and said, "There are many ninjas who are stronger than me in this world. And there are numerous hidden jutsus. Even I can't protect you from every sneak attack. It'll be up to you to dodge or block them." Hoka nodded and deactivated his seal. Renjiro said, "With that out of the way, let's run. We'll move in a kite formation. Fujin, you take the lead, Mieko on the right, Hoka on the left, and I'll take the rear. And move fast. Let's get there in a few hours." As soon as they received the instructions, they moved into the formation. Fujin stood ahead. Mieko stood 2 meters to his left and behind. Hoka did the same, but on the right side. Renjiro stood around 6 meters behind Fujin. The squad then began moving at a high speed, while maintaining those distances. By 3 p.m., the team reached Shakuba town. On entering the town, Renjiro said, "We'll do the mission tomorrow. For now, let's rest in an inn." The kids nodded and followed him. On the way, Fujin noted, This town feels a bit familiar. But I don't recall where I saw it. Was it shown in Naruto? Sigh, I barely remember any scenery now." Renjiro led the squad into the town. Fujin, Hoka, and Mieko noticed that the town had a lot of inns. They also noticed a couple of gambling houses and an area that had lots of games with prizes for winners. However, Fujin noted a peculiarity. He observed, every game here is based on luck. No game requires any skills. I guess it makes sense though. Making games like that is just asking to loot themselves in this ninja world. Finally, Renjiro entered an inn. Mieko thought, finally, after skipping past 13 inns. When Renjiro began chatting with the innkeeper, Fujin noticed, "Oh, he seems very familiar with the innkeeper. Is that why we skipped so many inns?" After discussing with the innkeeper, Renjiro approached the trio. He handed each of them a key and said, "These will be your rooms. Stay in the inn. I'll scout out a bit and return in a couple of hours." After Renjiro left, Mieko asked, "So what should we do now?" Fujin sighed and commented, "I'd have liked to tour this town, sadly he asked us to stay in the inn." Hoka added, "Yeah, and we can't even train physically." Fujin said, "Let's just retire to our rooms and meditate. Tomorrow will be our first instance of real combat." Everyone nodded and retired to their rooms to meditate and rest. Renjiro returned in the evening and took everyone out for dinner. Next day, 8 a.m. in the morning, the squad assembled outside Renjiro's room and moved out. Their first target was located around 25 kilometers to the west of the town. After reaching there, Fujin sensed something. He said, "Sensei, I can sense 6 normal people around 400 meters ahead." Renjiro nodded and said, "There's a village in that direction. So it's probably the villagers. Our target is the bandits that are harassing that village." Renjiro continued in that direction. Fujin soon noticed those 6 people he sensed were farming. They continued further and reached the village. On entering the village, Renjiro asked around and then reached the village chief's house. The house was very old and the man who opened the door was even older. As soon as the village chief saw the headbands, he respectfully invited everyone in and said, "Welcome to our village lord." Renjiro nodded and said, "Just call me Renjiro." He then handed a paper to the village chief. The village chief read the paper and became very happy. He bowed to Renjiro and said, "Thank you, Lord Renjiro, for saving us from the bandits. After you deal with them, we can live peacefully once again." Renjiro stated, "I need more details about the bandits." The village chief nodded and replied, "Please ask. I'll help you however I can." Renjiro asked, "Since when did the bandits begin harassing your village?" The village chief answered, "Around 9 months back. Just before our harvest in the previous year. However, they became a lot more aggressive in the past couple of months." Renjiro continued asking, "I see. And what crimes have they committed?" The village chief answered in a shaking voice, "Initially, they just stole our crops and money. But recently, Fujin could see the village chief tearing up at this point. He continued, they killed 9 villagers and kidnapped 6 young girls. He began sobbing and said, they even killed my son. And he began crying. Renjiro was about to calm the old man down, however, the old village chief quickly controlled himself and showed a face of determination. Fujin was very surprised, he thought, admirable. To have this strong determination despite not being a ninja. Seeing the look of determination on the old man's face, even Renjiro was impressed. He asked, how many bandits are there and from where do they attack you? The village chief replied, in their attack 5 days ago there were over 15 bandits. And they always approach us from the north. Renjiro nodded and said, all right, thanks for giving us the information. Don't worry, we will deal with them. The village chief quickly thanked him. Renjiro and the kids left the house. Mieko asked Renjiro, so what now, sensei? Do we begin our search in the north? Renjiro nodded and answered, yes. Fujin then asked, but sensei, why will they attack from the direction their base is in? Won't they attack from a different direction just to confuse us? Renjiro shook his head and replied, these are just common bandits. I doubt they have enough smarts to think about something like this. If they were smart enough, then they wouldn't have killed the villagers or kidnapped girls. They then moved towards the northern part of the village. They noticed that a few houses were burnt. Renjiro commanded, Mieko, use your Sharingan to see if you can find any tracks they left behind. Mieko activated her Sharingan and began investigating. Soon she found a few tracks that were left behind. She said, Sensei found them. Renjiro nodded and said, good work. Lead the way. Kite formation with Mieko in the lead and me in the rear. Fujin, Hoka, keep an eye on the surroundings and try to find those bandits. The squad followed Mieko. On the way, Fujin noticed a few trees that had sword cuts on them. After traveling around 3.5 kilometers to the north, Fujin said, Hoka, check 500 meters to the northwest. Hoka activated his Byakugan and soon said, Sensei found them. Renjiro nodded and the squad traveled in that direction. On reaching there, they saw that there was a small hill with a cave in it. On the entrance there were 2 bandits guarding the entrance. Each had a sword with them. They were standing behind trees, so those bandits couldn't see them. Renjiro sensed everything within the hill and said, so which one of you wants to handle this? Fujin quickly replied, me, sensei. Mieko and Hoka, who were just about to reply, glared at Fujin. Renjiro nodded and said, no clones. And our mission is to eliminate them all. Fujin began sensing once again. In all, he could sense 23 people within the cave, including the 2 guards. He then looked at Hoka and asked, Hoka, could you take a look to see if there are any traps? Also, what is the layout of the cave? Hoka nodded and activated his Byakugan. After observing properly, he replied, in all, I see 3 traps. 2 are behind the first entrance and the second entrance. They are basic arrow traps, which trigger when you step on the wire. The third is a small hole dug in front of the second entrance, and has spikes in it. As for the layout, there is another entrance inside this outer entrance. Then there is a big room which has 3 more mini-caves in it. Fujin replied, all right, thanks. And is there anyone who has tried to hide his chakra? Hoka shook his head and Fujin thanked him. Chapter 48, The First Kill. Fujin closed his eyes and calmed himself. He thought, finally the time for my first kill. He then took a deep breath and let it out. He made a few hand signs and disappeared within the ground. On the entrance, the 2 bandits were very bored of keeping watch. One complained to the other, why do we have to stand guard here? I wish we could just go and attack the village again and capture a few more girls. The second bandit laughed in a lecherous manner and replied, yeah, the girls we captured a few days back were so fun. I can't wait to get my Han. However, his sentence was cut short. While he was talking, a sword appeared out of the ground and moved towards his waist, a sword enhanced by chakra flow. Before either of the bandits could notice, the sword cut through the waist of one bandit and split him in 2. He died without even knowing how. The remaining bandit panicked. His arm subconsciously moved towards his sword. However, before he could even grab his sword, his head was separated from his body. After killing the 2, Fujin again disappeared within the ground and entered the cave. The next 2 bandits were on guard in the space between the entrance to the hill and another entrance which was located inside the hill. They were standing with their backs to the wall and facing each other. Fujin moved through the hill and pierced one bandit straight through his heart. The bandit opposite saw a sword coming out of the chest of the bandit in front of him. However, before he could shout for everyone's attention, a shuriken came straight at him and went through his throat, killing him on the spot. Fujin moved through the ground again and avoided the hole the bandits had dug. He had now entered the main hideout of the bandits. He stealthily observed through a wall. He saw the 3 more mini-caves that Hoka had mentioned. The place where he currently was had 12 bandits there. The remaining 7 were in those 3 mini-caves, which made him think, are they leaders or something? He then observed those 12 bandits carefully. 4 were sleeping in a corner. 2 seemed to be working on something. One of them was looking at something intensely, whereas the other was sharpening his sword. The remaining 6 were drinking alcohol and playing cards. Fujin moved through the ground towards the bandit who was sharpening his sword. He appeared behind him and chopped his head off. Even before his head could fall on the ground, Fujin moved towards the bandit who was looking at a map. He stabbed a sword straight through his heart and pulled it out quickly. At this moment, the head and the sword of the earlier one dropped on the ground, creating a noise. This attracted the attention of the 6 who were drinking. Seeing the chopped head of their fellow bandit shocked and scared them. However, before they could make a move, Fujin had already flickered behind them. He quickly chopped 2 more heads off in one clean swing. He chopped another 2 beads off before they could even know what was happening. Only the last 2 bandits saw Fujin, however, they too were killed before they could do anything. 2 of the 6 bandits had alcohol bottles in their hand, which crashed on the ground. The noise woke up 2 of the 4 sleeping bandits. One ignored the noise and just changed his sleeping position. The other, however, got up to see what was happening. However, even before he could completely open his eyes, his head was slashed off by Fujin. Quickly, Fujin also stabbed his sword in the throat of the guy who turned and followed by stabbing the hearts of the remaining 2. He then disappeared in the ground again and entered one of the 3 mini-caves. The first one had 2 bandits who were quickly stabbed through their hearts. In the second cave, Fujin could sense 3 people. Fujin quickly moved in and stabbed the one who was resting along the wall through his heart. He quickly moved in to kill the second one who was laying on the ground. However, his sword stopped a few inches away from her chest. The one who was laying there was a teenage girl who was nude, bruised and bleeding from a lot of places. He quickly shifted his attention to the other person in the room. The young girl's appearance had disturbed Fujin, causing him to pause for half a second. This gave the bandit an opportunity to grab his sword and charge towards Fujin. Fujin just raised his left sword to block his sword, and stabbed his other sword through the bandit's heart. He decided to move in the remaining mini-cave, but he heard a loud shout. The last bandit yelled, "Bastards! Who is wasting my good wine? It do." However, his words stuck in his mouth when he saw the gore in his hideout. All he saw were chopped heads and the dead bodies of his bandits. He saw all the blood that was flowing on the ground. He was horrified and asked in a shaking voice, "WH?" However, he never completed his question, as a sword pierced through his heart from his back. Fujin pulled his sword out and created a shadow clone. The clone went out to report to Renjiro and to call him in. Whereas, he began cleaning the blood off his sword. Finally, while cleaning his sword, he looked up at the dead body lying in front of him, as well as the 12 dead bodies in the hideout. The sight and the stench caused him to vomit immediately. He thought, damn, as I thought, the first kill was a big deal. I didn't feel anything while I was in the midst of killing them. But now. He vomited more and shivered at what he had done. As soon as he began vomiting, Renjiro's shadow clone popped out of the ground and asked, "Are you fine?" After Fujin was done vomiting, he nodded his head. He got up and sat in a corner. Renjiro said, "It's all right. The first kill is always difficult. In the future you'll have to kill a lot more." Fujin nodded. Renjiro said, "Close your eyes and calm yourself." Fujin listened to Renjiro and closed his eyes and began clearing his mind. At that time, the clone reached Renjiro and reported the success of the mission to him. Renjiro then brought Hoka and Mieko to the cave. When they reached the entrance, Mieko and Hoka finally got a very clear view of the dead bodies and smelled the stench. Hoka resisted his urge to vomit, however, Mieko couldn't and she vomited on the spot. Renjiro saw that, however he didn't say anything. Renjiro used Earth Spear Jutsu to disable all the traps and said, "Follow me." They followed him to the interior of the cave. Mieko and Hoka tried their best to ignore the 2 dead bodies there. However, after entering the main hideout and seeing the 12 dead bodies and a few heads, they couldn't bear it. Mieko vomited again and Hoka too vomited this time. Renjiro waited for them and said, "These are just dead bodies. People who were killed by someone else. How will you become a ninja if you can't even stop yourself from vomiting? How will you become a ninja if merely this sight makes you drop to your knees?" Those words forced Mieko and Hoka to toughen up and they stood up. Seeing that Renjiro had calmed Hoka and Mieko, his clone dispelled. Renjiro then brought Mieko and Hoka to the mini-cave where Fujin was. Sensing them, Fujin got up and looked at them. Renjiro was impressed with Fujin. He thought, excellent. To gather himself and calm down so quickly after his first kill. He then looked at Mieko and Hoka, who looked determined and thought, these two should perform well too. Fujin said, "Sensei, there's a girl in the cave besides this one." Renjiro nodded and led his team there. The gruesome sight made the Genins wince their faces. The girl laid bare without any clothes. She was bleeding from her private parts. She had multiple sword cuts all over her body which were bleeding. On her left hand 2 fingers were cut, and on her right leg 3 toes were cut. There were even some burns on her. Even Renjiro sighed at that sight. He thought, I didn't want them to see something like this so early. Renjiro then said, "Fujin, Hoka, wait outside this cave. Mieko, apply her first aid." Fujin and Hoka left the cave, while Mieko took out her first aid kit and began cleaning her wounds and applying bandages. Outside, Hoka asked Fujin, "You all right?" Fujin nodded and replied, "I didn't think the first kill would be so hard to adjust to." Hoka sighed and said, "I was warned repeatedly by my parents. There were a few ninjas who after their first kill couldn't even continue as ninjas." He then looked at the dead bodies and stated, "You are strong, Fujin." Fujin smiled and said, "Thanks, but you should prepare yourself. Tomorrow or the day after it'll be your turn." Hoka nodded grimly. It took Mieko around 25 minutes to fix the girl. Renjiro then carried her out. He then looked at the girl and said to his students, "Ensure that you become very strong, so that such a misfortune doesn't befall you." The Genins could hear an uncharacteristic sadness in Renjiro's voice. They all replied with determination, "Yes, sensei." After leaving the cave, Renjiro made a clone. The clone grabbed the 2 dead bodies outside the cave and tossed them inside. He then used earth wall jutsu to seal the entrance to the cave. Fujin asked, "Sensei, don't we have to give any proof to the village chief about completing the mission?" Renjiro shook his head and said, "Not on rank C missions that require elimination of bandits. Proof is required for assassination missions. If the heads of the bandits are given to the village, then more bandits will target the village in the future." Renjiro then said, "Let's go back to the village." On the way, Fujin asked, "Sensei, have we eliminated all the bandits? What if there are any who weren't in this base?" Renjiro shook his head and said, "Doubtful. You can sense up to half a kilometer and still didn't find anyone. Even if there are 1 or 2 outside, seeing that their fellow bandits are dead, they won't cause any more trouble for the village. Anyways, we were told that there were over 15 bandits and we killed 22. That's more than enough for completing our mission." However, Mieko argued back, "But sensei, in that case, won't the criminals roam free? What if they were responsible for torturing this girl? What if they joined some other bandits and continue doing this?" Renjiro replied, "Our mission was to eliminate the bandit group harassing the village. Anything further isn't our responsibility." However, Mieko wasn't convinced and she glared at her sensei. Renjiro sighed and said, "Just killing off an entire bandit group doesn't mean that more won't appear. In a couple of years another group will be formed. This isn't something you or I can change. So searching for any bandit not in the hideout is pointless. If they join some other group, they'll die when we get the mission to eliminate that group." Mieko was still unconvinced, but she stopped arguing. Fujin sighed internally thinking, "No matter the world, the cruelty of humanity always exists. It's many times worse in this world than in my previous world. To torture and mutilate this girl for nothing but fun and amusement. I can't even imagine what they did to the other girls they kidnapped." He then glanced at Renjiro and thought, "Konoha? It is reputed to be a very peace-loving village, led by a Kage who propagates peace. Of course, anyone with little brains can see that Konoha is nowhere near as peace-loving as it claims to be. The mere existence of Root throws that claim in the trash. However, there's no denying that it still is more peace-loving than the other 4 great villages. Still, it engages in such a practice. While it's true that finding other bandits will be a pain in the ass, it still won't be very difficult. Now these bandits will form a bandit group in the future and become its leaders. In the future they'll again target this village, and the village will again send a mission to Konoha. This cycle will ensure that this village will always need Konoha's help and will always feel indebted to Konoha. Similarly, every village in the Land of Fire will feel indebted to Konoha. Thus, a pressure will be maintained on the daimyo to keep supporting and perhaps funding Konoha. Such a simple way to maintain influence. It doesn't cost Konoha anything, but costs dozens of lives to each of these villages. Sigh, if the most peace-loving village is so brutal and cruel, I wonder what a cruel village will be. He then let a breath of air out and thought, well, whatever, it doesn't exactly concern me. Chapter 49 Consecutive Rank C Missions. They soon reached the village. On entering the village, the girl on Renjiro's back got a few curious looks. The squad entered the village chief's house again and laid the girl down on a bed in his home. Renjiro said, she needs immediate medical care. The village chief nodded and went out to send someone to call the village doctor. At that moment, a middle-aged man came running towards the village chief house. On seeing the village chief, he quickly asked while sobbing, Chief M, my daughter? Is she? The village chief quickly calmed him and said, yes, she's safe. Enter my home. He quickly ran to the house and rushed to his daughter. On seeing him running, Renjiro stopped him and said, she's injured, don't hug her or hold her tightly. The man finally stopped and sat down next to the bed and began sobbing after seeing the bandages on his daughter. Soon a doctor arrived and began attending to her. The father and the village chief thanked Renjiro and the Genins again and again. After a few minutes, the village chief handed Renjiro a paper, and the squad left the village and moved back to the town. After reaching the town, Renjiro said, take today off. Explore this town. However, stick together. We'll meet in the same restaurant as yesterday's at 1 p.m. After he left, Hoka said, because so much happened, I didn't notice that we completed the mission and returned back to this town in merely 2 hours. Mieko nodded. Fujin sighed and said, yeah, and the actual fight didn't even last for a couple of minutes. Even though killing was hard to adjust to, the fight itself wasn't a challenge. Hearing that, Mieko asked for all the details. Hoka had already seen it all with his Byakugan, so he didn't ask for it. After giving out the details, Mieko felt a bit anticlimactic about the Rank C mission. Fujin chuckled and said, next time you snap at that guy, force him to give us a Rank B mission. Hearing that, Mieko loudly replied, hey, who snapped? This yell attracted the attention of nearby people and made Mieko go red with embarrassment. She thought for a bit and said, but yeah, I guess we should ask for Rank B missions. The kids then toured around the town. They tried some of the local food there and played a few games. At 1 p.m. they met up with Renjiro in the restaurant. After occupying the seats, Renjiro looked at Fujin and asked, so how are you doing? Fujin said, I am doing fine, sensei. Renjiro nodded satisfactorily and said, good. You have handled your first kill very well. I am proud of you. He then looked at Mieko and Hoka and said, next it'll be your turn. Prepare yourselves. The 2 young ninjas nodded nervously. Lunch came and the team started eating. While they were eating, Mieko suddenly asked, Sensei, when can we do Rank B missions? Renjiro squinted his eyes and asked, what brought this on? Mieko said, we want to fight against the enemy ninjas. Just fighting bandits is not much fun. Renjiro scoffed and said, humph. You guys ain't ready. However, he saw Mieko's determined face. Knowing the trouble she'll cause, he quickly added, if you ask this again or pester me for Rank B missions, I'll make you do Rank D missions for an entire year. This threat made Mieko quiet down quickly. Team Renjiro didn't do much for the rest of the day. The next morning, a similar procedure was followed. Team Renjiro was hiding in a bamboo forest while looking at the bandit hideout. The bandits had cleared out a small area and constructed 3 small huts and 1 medium-sized hut to serve as their base. The medium-sized hut was in the center, while the other 3 were around it. Fujin had sensed 12 people inside those huts. Renjiro asked, so who wants this one? Mieko beat Hoka by saying, me. Renjiro nodded and said, all right, we'll leave this hideout to you. Mieko began walking forward stealthily. But soon she stopped and returned. She looked at Hoka and asked, Hoka, do they have any hostages? Hoka checked and answered, no, all 12 seem to be bandits. Mieko asked. How many are there in each of the huts? Hoka answered. There are 9 in the central hut, 2 in that hut, 1 in the hut on the right, and the last one is empty. Mieko nodded and used Earth military movement jutsu to stealthily move forward. She stopped 5 meters away from the hut, which had 2 bandits, and appeared out of the ground. The bigger hut was exactly behind the small hut from where she was standing. She quickly made the hand signs, fireball jutsu. The fireball quickly moved through the smaller hut. As soon as it moved through it, 2 people screamed loudly. Since the fireball didn't explode, it just burnt them and didn't kill them right away. The fireball moved through the smaller hut to the bigger hut. It exploded right at the center of the bigger hut. The explosion completely demolished the hut. Fujin saw 4 bodies being thrown out due to the explosion. The explosion killed 7 bandits on the spot. 2 bandits who were thrown out were still alive and were screaming due to being on fire. The status of the 2 bandits in the smaller hut was the same. Due to the huts being made of bamboo and leaves, they offered no resistance to the fireball. Hearing the screams, the last remaining bandit got out of his hut, only to see 2 huts on fire. He looked around and saw one of his fellow bandits burning and screaming. The view horrified him. Before he could decide to do anything, Mieko flickered behind him and used fire release for jutsu to produce a heat ray that stabbed him through the heart and killed him. Now that all the bandits were killed or incapacitated, Mieko looked around her. She saw the dead bodies on fire. She could smell the flesh burning and hear the dying screams from 3 bandits. That scene immediately made her vomit. Renjiro quickly appeared behind her and consoled her. Fujin, having already killed, was able to look at this scene without much struggle. Hoka, however, struggled due to the smell and the screams. Soon the screams died down and all the bandits were dead. After giving Mieko a few minutes to adjust, Team Renjiro retreated from there. Before leaving, Renjiro buried the whole place underground using an earth release jutsu. The next day, Team Renjiro again repeated a similar mission. This time the mission was to arrest the bandits. Hoka completed it by knocking out all the bandits and tying them up. However, Renjiro made Hoka kill 2 bandits so that he could get his first kill too. Renjiro gave the squad off on the 4th day. On the 5th morning, Renjiro said, "Today will be our last mission. You 3 have done well. Let's move out." On the way he said, "Today's bandit hideout will be much bigger. So you will have to cooperate with each other." The Genins nodded in agreement. Continuous drills for 2.5 months had made their teamwork very good. And being there for each other when they made their first kill had brought them much closer. So working together wasn't an issue for any of them. On reaching the hideout, the Genins noticed that the entire hideout was actually underground. Fujin scanned the entire base. He said, "There are 63 people I can sense." He then looked at Renjiro and said, "And 5 have higher chakra levels, though they are only Genin level." Renjiro nodded, whereas Mieko exclaimed cheerfully, "Yes, finally we will fight ninjas." Fujin asked, "But sensei, aren't missions that involve ninjas ranked B?" Renjiro nodded his head and replied, "Yeah, but they are only Genin level. There are many cases of people outside the hidden villages unlocking their chakra and reaching Genin level by themselves. There are also many cases of Genins defecting from the village. Anyways, they are barely ninjas, and many times rank C missions include dealing with them too. So be careful. After all, there are over 100,000 ninjas in the world, so who knows where one can be." The Genins nodded. Fujin thought, this is unexpected. Though it makes sense, I guess. If the village begins ranking missions as rank B for only a chance of having to deal with a rogue Genin, then rank C missions will probably not exist at all. The team began by first mapping the base. The base was quite big. There was one big room at the center of the hideout. Fujin suggested, "Let's call it the main room." There were 3 exits to the main room, all almost equidistant from each other. These exits were connected to one big corridor that surrounded the entire main room. On the other side of the passageway were many smaller rooms. Hoka commented, "I guess they use the main room as a common room for planning, celebration, etc., while the smaller rooms are their personal rooms." There were a lot of traps all over the base which were spotted by Hoka. Of the 5 ninjas, 3 were together in the main room, while the other 2 were in the smaller rooms. Mieko said, Both the ninjas in the smaller rooms have their rooms very close to that exit from the main base." Fujin nodded and said, "Yeah, we will have to be careful. I'll killing them." If they make a lot of sound, it'll alert everyone in the main room. The bandits too were all over the base. In all, there were 4 exits from the hideout to above the ground. One was located in the main room, while 3 were just outside the exits from the main room to the corridor. Fujin thought, this base is very well built. I wonder if it started with something small and was slowly expanded as the bandit group grew larger. Or if the base is something that naturally existed and was just occupied by these bandits. Also, if we didn't destroy those bandit groups, would they have grown in this manner too? Fujin looked at his teammates and said, so first, we have to decide from where to attack them. Mieko replied, let's just attack the main room. Most bandits are present there. Hoka nodded and added, yeah, this way we'll deal with the majority of them in one blow, and we can then pick out the scattered bandits one by one. Fujin replied, yeah, good idea. But if we do that, then the scattered bandits can try to escape. Hoka replied, yeah, but we can just chase and kill them. Fujin replied, but it'll be very troublesome to hunt them all down one by one. Especially if all of them run in different directions. Also, by destroying the main room, the bandits in all the other rooms will be alerted, and the ninjas will be alerted too. Hoka thought a bit and nodded in agreement. Mieko asked, then what do you think? Fujin pointed in a direction and said, that room there is at one edge of the hideout, and also has one of the 5 ninjas there. Let's start with that room. We will sneak up on the ninja and kill him. Then we will clear the nearby rooms and slowly and stealthily head to the main room. This way, this direction will already be cleared when we destroy the main room. So killing them all will be much easier. Mieko and Hoka thought for a few seconds and agreed with the plan. The Genins then discussed the plan further and decided on the details. Once everything was planned, they checked their weapons and were about to begin their attack. But Mieko suddenly asked, wait, who will kill the ninja? Hoka quickly replied, I'll kill him. Mieko rebuked him, why you? I will kill the ninja. They then looked at Fujin. He said, my sword provides me with a longer range, I think I'll be more suited to killing him. However, neither Hoka nor Mieko agreed to that logic. The argument about the kill went on for a minute. Renjiro observed his genins and sighed. Fujin then said, well, all 3 of us can kill him. So let's just decide with rock, paper, scissors. On hearing that, both Hoka and Mieko looked at Fujin with a deadpan expression. Mieko said, that's so childish. We are ninjas. Fujin scoffed and asked, well, do you two have any better ideas? Hoka and Mieko looked at each other. Not having any other idea, they reluctantly agreed. They soon got in the posture to play the game and began playing. Renjiro now looked over with amusement. The first 3 rounds were tied. Fujin thought, this is fun. I guess that's why Goku and Vegeta did this so often. Mieko thought, I am not sure if I'll why. Wait. As the trio began the 4th round, Mieko's eyes suddenly turned red. She saw that both Fujin and Hoka were about to do rock, so she went with paper. And said, I win. Hoka quickly protested, hey, no Sharingan. That's cheating. Mieko rebuked him, well, there were no rules stating that we couldn't use Sharingans. Fujin, who just wanted to start the mission, chuckled and said, well, she got us there. Remember to set the rules properly next time. Seeing that he didn't have Fujin's support, Hoka reluctantly agreed. They then looked at each other and nodded. All 3 made hand signs and disappeared within the ground. The bandit base, which was properly hidden and even well defended due to being underground, was about to feel the terror of being hunted by a squad, in which every member could freely move underground. Chapter 50, Raid.in The hideout, Hirota Masa was relaxing. He had joined the bandit group 3 years ago. He had already unlocked his chakra before joining the bandit group. When the leader of the bandits noticed him, he quickly recruited and trained him. Now he was one of the leaders of this group, and even had 2 subordinates who helped him in everything. Hirota Masa was relaxing in a good mood. A hand with 2 fingers pointing out popped from the ground. It headed towards his chest from his back and released a heat ray that penetrated his heart and killed him on the spot. At the same time, Fujin slashed the head off one bandit, and Hoka jabbed 2 fingers in the chest of the remaining bandit. The raid had begun. All 3 bandits died without even making a sound. Fujin, Hoka and Mieko looked at each other and nodded. They separated and headed towards the other rooms. In less than a minute, the rooms on this side were all cleared. They had assassinated 16 bandits, including a ninja. They gathered together again and looked in the main room. The bandits there were still unaware of the calamity upon them. As decided, Fujin and Mieko split off in opposite directions and began clearing the remaining rooms. Hoka, on the other hand, stayed there and rigged the entrance to the main room with traps, so that the bandits couldn't escape in this direction. He created quicksand at the entrances and also created a lot of rock spikes around the quicksand trap. The second ninja bandit was closer to Mieko's location than Fujin's location. Therefore, she was the first one to reach him after she had killed 6 more bandits. Even though Mieko was as stealthy as she could be, the ninja still noticed that something was amiss and asked his 2 subordinates to be prepared. As soon as he saw Mieko, who was rushing towards him at a very high speed, he threw a few shurikens to disrupt her. Seeing her enemy throwing shurikens at her, Mieko thought, "Damn, they noticed." Mieko used her Sharingan to skillfully dodge the shurikens and thought, "Oh well, this makes it more fun." She quickly approached him. To maintain the stealth, she couldn't use any destructive fire release jutsus and had to close the distance to use fire release, 4 jutsu. She soon reached the appropriate distance and used her jutsu. Her right hand was stretched out, with her middle and index finger pointing towards the rogue ninja's heart, and released the ray. Though the rogue ninja didn't know the jutsu Mieko was planning to use, her outstretched fingers warned him and he quickly moved backwards. Mieko followed, but the ninja hid behind one of his subordinates. Mieko screamed internally, "Coward," and changed her target. She focused the heat ray on the subordinate and killed him. However, the rogue ninja used this opportunity to throw 3 shurikens on Mieko. Mieko had to dodge quickly due to the small distance. She barely managed to dodge at the last moment. She recovered and was about to continue her attack when a sword pierced through the heart of the ninja from his back. This annoyed Mieko as Fujin had stolen her kill. She said angrily, "I could have killed him by mice." But a loud scream interrupted her. Seeing his boss getting stabbed through his heart shocked the remaining bandit, and he yelled in terror. Realizing her mistake, Mieko quickly threw a kunai at the bandit and killed him. Fujin ignored Mieko and focused on the main room. The battle had already created enough noise to attract some attention, and the loud scream had got the attention of all the bandits in the hideout. Fujin sighed and said, "You weren't stealthy enough." Mieko snorted and replied, "Well, it doesn't matter anymore." She began making hand signs. Fujin flickered next to her and made a hand sign too. At the same time, they released their jutsu, Fire Wind Dragon Jutsu, in the main room. The bandits were busy with sorting their recent loot. Some of the bandits had heard some noises from the side where Mieko was killing the bandits. However, it was mostly ignored by them. But soon, a loud scream attracted everyone's attention. The 3 remaining rogue ninjas too were on alert. One of them directed 2 bandits to go in and check what was happening. Those 2 carefully moved towards the exit in that direction. However, right before reaching there, they suddenly felt a lot of heat. But before they could do anything, a dragon head made of fire entered the room and engulfed them. They immediately began screaming in pain. The dragon quickly entered the room completely. The sight of a dragon made of fire scared the bandits stiff. The dragon began spitting wind explosion jutsus all over the room. Seeing that, one bandit quickly made hand signs and slammed his hands on the ground, causing a rock shield to be created in front of him. Some of the nearby bandits quickly ran behind that shield. The wind explosion jutsus hit 7 bandits head-on. The winds created by the explosion slashed the throats of 2 bandits, killing them on spot. However, they were much luckier than the ones who didn't die. For the remaining 5, the winds created small cuts all over their bodies. As it was a combination jutsu, the wind was incredibly hot. So, along with the cuts, it also caused low-level burns on those bandits. And it was incredibly painful when their cuts were exposed to that hot air. One of those 5 bandits was even more unlucky as he didn't shut his eyes. It resulted in a lot of hot air bombarding his eyes, causing them to burn up. So though the jutsu didn't kill them, they were scarred and in immense pain. Even the bandits nearby were harmed by the hot wind slashes. However, they could still fight or run. The attack caused panic among the bandits. 3 bandits quickly tried to escape out of the base. They rushed towards the ladder and began climbing it. Unfortunately for them, Hoka was standing just above the exit. Hoka waited for all 3 bandits to be on the ladder, and then made a few hand signs, stone spear jutsu. From the walls around the ladder, dozens of spears began appearing. They stabbed all the 3 bandits on the ladder, killing them on spot. It also blocked the access to the ladder for the remaining bandits. 2 bandits ran towards the area which was cleared by Fujin earlier. On sensing the bandits running in that direction, Fujin made a hand sign and waited. As soon as the bandits exited the main room, Fujin exploded the explosion tag he had planted there. That caused the rocks from the ceiling to fall down and crush those bandits. It also sealed that exit. 5 bandits ran towards the room where Hirotomasa was supposed to be. However, as soon as they exited the main room, they fell straight into the quicksand trap. The quicksand Hoka had created had a depth of 4 meters and had covered the entire entrance. All 5 bandits were trapped there and were slowly sinking in. 11 bandits were hiding behind the rock shield created by their leader and 8 were still trying to escape in the directions of their fellow bandits. However, they stopped in their tracks after seeing what happened to them. Fujin used this opportunity to make the dragon bombard them with 3 wind explosion jutsus, injuring all 8 of them to a certain degree. The dragon then circled around to get a clear shot at the bandits hiding behind the rock. The leader quickly made another rock shield. Sadly for him, Fujin and Mieko had anticipated it. Instead of bombarding, the dragon circled around more and launched 2 wind explosion jutsus in such a manner that they couldn't escape from there. They were surrounded by the rock shields on 2 sides and wind explosion jutsus on the remaining 2 sides. Only the 3 ninjas managed to jump and move to the other side of the rock shields. The remaining bandits were trapped and took minor injuries. The dragon then moved forward and engulfed all of those bandits. It set all 8 of the bandits on fire, but also caused the fire wind dragon to dissipate. This assault had incapacitated all the bandits in the hideout, with the exception of the 3 ninjas. 2 among them were novices with no actual experience beyond their banditry. Only the leader had a bit of experience as he was once a genin in the Kuzugakure. He had noticed that the jutsu was about to dissipate and said, "Hurry and follow me." He led the remaining 2 to the entrance from where the dragon had come in. However, on entering he didn't see anyone there. Instead he saw the dead body of his fellow bandits and one of his ninjas. Seeing him dead alarmed him and he became much more cautious. He said, "Be careful, they might still be around. Let's look for them, Toj." Suddenly he jumped up and looked below. The ground had moved and wanted to trap his feet in it. Even though he dodged, Fujin smirked underground. "Got them." He had trapped the other 2 bandits. Mieko saw that and appeared at the entrance. She quickly made hand signs, fireball jutsu. The trapped bandits couldn't dodge and were caught in the explosion. Only the leader managed to dodge. He saw his last 2 bandits burning with disbelief. "It's all over. I need to escape." He quickly began running away. However, Fujin stealthily launched a shuriken enhanced with chakra flow at his left leg. Distracted by fear and the urgency to escape, the bandit leader didn't notice it. The shuriken hit his left leg from behind and cut through it like a hot knife through butter. Suddenly losing his left leg made him fall down and cry in pain. Fujin then used body flicker jutsu to appear right above him and stab a sword through his heart. The bandit leader died with despair on his face. Fujin looked at Mieko and said, "Looks like this is over." Mieko asked, "Aren't there a few still alive back in the main room?" Fujin chuckled and said, "Not anymore," and began walking towards the main room. Mieko followed him. In the main room, Hoka had already killed all the bandits who were still alive from the Fire Wind Dragon. Assault. At that moment, Renjiro too appeared within the main room. He thought, "Not bad, they killed every last one of them. And they have adjusted to killing well." He said, "Good work. This mission is successfully completed." He then looked at his team and said, "It's good to see you guys being able to handle the killing very well." The kids nodded. Even though they were still repulsed by the gore around them, they could handle themselves without vomiting. Renjiro then led his team out of the hideout. He then made the hand seal for an earth release jutsu. Fujin quickly stopped him by asking, "Sensei, isn't it a waste to destroy such a good base?" The sudden question stopped Renjiro from destroying the underground base. He asked, "What do you mean?" Fujin replied, "Can't we use this base for our own ninjas?" Renjiro asked, "And how will our ninjas use this base?" Fujin thought for a few seconds and replied, "Well, they could use it as a base during war. Or they could use it as a temporary resting place or perhaps create an underground supply depot." Renjiro shook his head and said, "The closest hidden village from here is Kusa. And they are allied with us. Even if they weren't, they can't penetrate this deep into the fire country. If there is any threat, then it'll be IWA, which is beyond Kusa. However, if they are able to penetrate this deep into the Land of Fire, then that base will be useless anyways, as the majority of the IWA ninjas are masters of Earth-release jutsus. They'll just bury all the troops underground. As for supply depots and resting places, there are already sufficient numbers of them. So it is unnecessary too. Fujin fell in thoughts and realized, yeah, that makes sense. Konoha has been around for decades. Surely their infrastructure would be top-notch by now. And surely they'd have identified all the bases over the Land of Fire. He then nodded to Renjiro, who destroyed the entire hideout. On the way back to the town, Mieko asked, "Sensei, were they really ninjas?" Only one of them used any ninjutsu, and even that was only a ranky jutsu. They couldn't put up a fight at all. Renjiro answered, "They were just common bandits who had unlocked chakra by accident or luck. Only their leader was probably a former ninja gone rogue. However, he too barely had any proper training. So it wasn't a surprise that he wasn't a match for you guys who are being trained by me." Hoka asked in excitement, "Sensei, aren't there bounties on rogue ninjas?" Renjiro shook his head and replied, "Only if they are very famous. Someone who barely qualifies as a genin won't have any bounty at all." That drowned Hoka's excitement. He continued following the squad with his shoulders dropped. Mieko, who was still stuck on how weak her enemies were, asked, "Sensei, when can we fight real ninjas then?" Renjiro turned his head and stared at her. He thought, nice way of indirectly asking me for rank B missions. On noticing that Renjiro had noticed her thoughts, Mieko was embarrassed. But she didn't allow that embarrassment to appear on her face. Fujin noticed that and thought, damn, these ninjas are born shameless. Renjiro smirked and answered, "After you have captured that cat 100 times. That answer drained the color off Mieko's face. Hoka glared at her, while Fujin chuckled, thinking, I guess no one can compete with the older generation in shamelessness. Mieko then began apologizing to Renjiro and began a funny banter. Sadly for her, she was no match for Renjiro. Chapter 51, Clash in the Forest of Death. Team Renjiro rested in the town for the day. Next morning, they left the town to return to Konoha. On arriving, they went to the Hokage Tower to turn in the missions. Renjiro handed the papers to the Chunin responsible for checking them. After checking, he handed 4 packets to Renjiro. The 4 missions combined paid them 280k. After Renjiro divided them, each of the 3 kids got 56k. Fujin thought, 280k just for these missions? I'm pretty sure I could have completed them solo and in under a day. It's much faster than Fuinjutsu. Though it has some risks if a strong ninja is hiding among the bandits. Anyways, I should be able to collect enough for a sword made from chakra metal pretty quickly if I take a lot of missions. Unlike Fujin, Mieko and Hoka didn't concern themselves much with the money. Thanks to having rather rich parents, they never had to worry or think about money. After the division of money, Renjiro dismissed them and said, "Tomorrow there won't be any training. We begin our training the day after tomorrow at the same time as usual." The kids nodded and dispersed. Since it was lunchtime, Fujin decided to head to Ichiraku. On the way, Fujin thought, 7 rank D missions and 4 rank C missions. Isn't the requirement for Chunin exam just 8 missions? I wonder when Renjiro will make us take the exam. Will it be the next round, or will it be like Teru's squad? Thinking about Teru created new thoughts in Fujin's mind. Yeah, isn't Teru's squad participating in the Chunin exam? I wonder what has happened with that. Did the Chunin exams already start, or is there still some time? This question resulted in Fujin realizing something very critical that he thought, now that I think about it, I am really clueless in regards to what is happening around me. Other than what I remember about what will happen in the future, I have no idea about what is exactly happening. I need some means of gathering information. But how to do it? He thought for a bit and decided, well, the least I should do is start getting newspapers delivered to my home. Though it won't contain any crucial information, it'll still keep me updated. Apart from that, I should probably make my own information gathering network. While I don't think I'd be able to make something as complex as what Jiraiya has, I don't really need it to be that good either. Just getting unfiltered and timely news would be sufficient. Oh well, I'll leave this for the future too. It'll take a lot of effort, time and money to actually create it. Right now I barely have any money or free time anyway. His thoughts were cut by a loud shout. He heard, "Old man. 3 miso ramens for me." Fujin turned right and noticed, Naruto? I didn't even notice reaching Ichiraku. But considering that Naruto is here. Fujin then focused on sensing his surroundings. After sensing, he thought, as I thought. 2 umbus are hiding nearby. Or perhaps 1 umbu and 1 root. I doubt Danzo wouldn't keep his eye on the lone Jinchuriki of Konoha. He then released a sigh and thought, well, as much as I'd like to meet him now, it'll probably create a lot of deviations in the future. Not to mention that it'll also gain the attention of both Hiruzen and Danzo. I'll leave this meeting for the future. At least until the time I can calculate and control those deviations. And until I'm strong enough to at least face these 2 umbus in case they have some stupid ideas. This means I'll have to go to a different restaurant. Fujin then moved in the direction of a nearby sushi restaurant. After lunch, he searched for a newspaper stand near his house and bought a subscription. With the Rank C missions completed, Team Renjiro got back to their training. A week's rest suddenly made the morning workout seem much more difficult. When Renjiro returned after the team's break was over, Mieko asked, Sensei, when can we go on the next mission? Hoka looked over with interest. Renjiro replied casually, Rank C missions take a lot longer time than Rank D missions. So we'll only do 1 monthly. Rest of the time will be focused on your training. Mieko's shoulders slumped on hearing that. It meant that there was no escape from this deadly training. At the same time as Fujin and his teammates were training, 2 Genin squads faced each other deep within a forest. Both squads consisted of 3 boys. However, one squad only had 10 to 11 years old Genins, while the other squad had 3 Genins who were almost 17 years old. The younger squad was from Konoha, while the older squad was from Kusa. Yori looked at his opponents. They were much older than him, but he wasn't worried. After all, they weren't Uchihas. Yokota Minoru, one of the Kusa Genins, said arrogantly, Looks like we are in luck. Konoha sent little babies for the exam. Yokota Yoshiaki chuckled and added, Why don't you little kids hand us your scroll and run to your mommies? The comments riled Yori up. He angrily said, Why you? I'll show you the might of a. However, he was cut short by his teammate. Hatake Kane said, Calm down, they are just trying to rile you. Tamaya Takehiko started laughing and replied, Oh, we aren't. We are just stating the truth. Teru sighed and said, They really are arrogant. Kane chuckled and added, Especially considering that they are still only Genins despite being so old. Takehiko replied, Old eh? I'll show you. He quickly began making hand signs. However, Teru slammed his hands on the ground and shouted, Too late! As soon as Teru slammed his hands on the ground, stone spears began appearing from the ground and completely surrounded the Kusa squad. Seeing their predicament, Kusanine stopped their hand signs and quickly jumped high towards the nearby trees. Yori, who was already making hand signs, thought, Got them, and launched Phoenix Sage Fire Jutsu. Seeing the balls of fire heading towards them, Minoru and Yoshiaki quickly made hand signs, Water Shield Jutsu. On completing the hand signs, a shield of water began forming between the Kusa Genins and the fire jutsu. The shield was completely formed in the nick of time and managed to protect them from the fire. However, Teru used this opportunity to launch the stone spears at the airborne Kusa Genins. The stone spears easily penetrated the water shield, forcing the Kusa Genins to use a kunai to block the spears and direct themselves to land properly on the nearby trees. As soon as they landed on the trees, they began making hand signs. However, before they could complete their jutsu, a Tonto appeared behind Yoshiaki and stabbed through his heart. Kane, who had appeared behind Yoshiaki, whispered, Game over! He pulled his Tonto out, and a lifeless body fell from the tree. Seeing their teammate die was very shocking for the Kusa Genins. Especially for Minoru, who was his cousin. He yelled, I'm going to kill you. Seeing Minoru lose his calm alarmed Takehiko. He quickly shouted, Minoru, wait! However, the shout fell on deaf ears. Minoru completed his hand signs, Water Pellet Jutsu. He launched the water pellet straight at Kane. However, Kane simply moved behind the trees, completely avoiding the attack. Seeing his attack missing enraged Minoru even further. He jumped towards Kane. Sensing the opening, Teru quickly made hand signs. Seeing Teru preparing a jutsu, Takehiko completed his hand signs and launched a water pellet straight at Teru. But Yori noticed it and thought, Not on my watch. He quickly launched Fireball Jutsu to intercept the water pellet. At the same time, Teru launched a water pellet straight at Minoru. The jutsu hit Minoru on his left rib cage and knocked him off course. Seeing his teammate at a disadvantage, Takehiko wanted to rush towards him. However, he was intercepted by Yuri and Teru. They engaged him in a fight and didn't allow him to move towards Minoru. The water pellet hurt Minoru badly, however he gritted his teeth and fought through the pain. He grabbed a kunai and continued moving towards Kane. On closing the distance, he attacked with his kunai. Kane raised his tanto to block the attack. Though Minoru attacked with a lot of force, as soon as the kunai and tanto clashed, an electric current passed through the kunai and hit him. Though not deadly, it was very painful, and Minoru had to take his hand off the kunai. Kane smirked and thought, current transfer jutsu. Always works. He just stepped forward and slashed his tanto at Minoru's neck. Minoru, who was blinded by rage, in immense pain due to the damaged ribs and still feeling the electric current, couldn't dodge and the slash went straight across his throat. His throat split open, causing blood to sprout out from it. He looked at Kane with unwillingness in his eyes. Sadly, he couldn't even control his body anymore and fell down, dead. At the same time, Takehiko was engaged against Teru and Yuri. After exchanging a few blows, Yuri closed the distance and launched Fireball Jutsu. Knowing that Takehiko will dodge, Teru threw shurikens in such a manner that Takehiko couldn't dodge the fireball. Not having any option, Takehiko used Water Shield Jutsu to defend. On seeing the Water Shield, Teru thought, all three have water affinity? Well, sucks to be them. He quickly made a hand sign and slammed his hands on the ground. That moment, the fireball had engulfed the water shield. However, Takehiko was completely safe due to the shield. Sadly for him, at that very moment, a stone spear appeared from the ground. It easily penetrated the water shield and headed towards Takehiko. The spear alarmed him. He grabbed a kunai and attempted to block the spear. But the spear pushed him backwards, throwing him out of his water shield and into the fireball, burning him alive. On seeing him die, Teru sighed in relief. He said, all done. Yuri nodded and said, yeah, that was easier than expected. Teru chuckled and said, yeah. Let's just hope that this guy wasn't carrying the scroll. Yuri looked at Teru with confusion. But he quickly realized and cursed, damn. That scroll will be ashes if he has it. At that time, Kane appeared from behind. He said, no need to worry. The crazy guy had it. He then tossed the scroll slightly in the air and commented, we were very lucky that such a weak team had the scroll we needed. Teru said, cool, got the Earth Scroll. Let's head towards the tower. Yuri objected and said, that'll be boring. Why not just try to eliminate the weaker teams in the forest? That way the competition will be lesser in the next rounds. Kane shook his head and said, it doesn't matter. This forest will eliminate the weak teams anyway. Teru nodded and agreed, yeah. Not to mention, the more time we spend in the forest, the more teams will set up traps near the tower. And if a team is weak enough to be eliminated by us in this round, then we will be able to do the same in the next round too. Seeing that both his teammates opposed his idea, Yuri relented and accompanied his team to the tower. Chapter 52, Notice. Hey guys, Happy New Year. Made a New Year resolution of completing this fanfic. Apologies for not posting any chapter for over a year. Unfortunately, I was just too busy IRL. I wrote a bit during the past year but never had enough time to write continuously. I suppose there was also some exhaustion and reluctance in getting back to writing continuously. So this time, I'm launching P at Trian to motivate myself a bit. Thanks in advance to all who decide to support me. Link www.patreon.com/devilhex. Instead of at, I'll start uploading chapters soon. We'll do a small mass release later today. Anyways, there has been a break in writing, so the next few chapters might not be that good. Apologies in advance for that. Criticism and tips are always welcomed as usual. I'll be making some changes though. Writing chapters worth 2 to 3k words was very taxing. So I'll be reducing chapter length to 1 to 1.5k words. If I have to write any around 800-1000 words, I'll release an additional chapter. I did go through the fanfic and realized that the character interactions are just way too little. So are the emotions displayed by MC. So I'll try to increase character interactions. And will show MC enjoying his time more rather than just covering his training routine. I did read all the comments and complaints by the readers who read the FIC when it was on hiatus. So clarifying a few things. Point 1. MC is giving too much importance to Danzo/MC is too worried about him. See, he just has one chance at life. And he has no interest in depending upon luck or hoping some plot supports him to avoid their radar or to get him out of trouble once he has been noticed. I don't plan on making MC behave like a moron just to get himself in trouble and then giving him insane luck or power boost to get him out of trouble. P.S. He may fall in trouble later on, but it'll be due to circumstances out of his control and not due to stupidity too. MC isn't talented, true. He isn't talented at anything. No system, no godly talent. Later on in the story, some of his skills and talent will increase exponentially. P.S. He's just 10 right now. The title of the FIC and MC's name should give you an idea. But it'll happen slowly over years. His only real advantage is that due to being such a fan of Naruto and other manga/novels, he really yearns for becoming strong. Not something a random kid from the Naruto world will have. His time in the academy pretty much showed this. Of course, even this drive might not really compare to the kind of training guy did. Point 3. MC is cowardly that he is, lol. He is just a normal guy who transmigrated into a world of deadly killers. Just cause he transmigrated and has some information regarding future plot, won't suddenly increase his courage. In fact, this has the opposite effect, as he knows how powerful the enemies will be and he knows how the leaders of the village can fuck you up. In addition, so far he has had real battles only against bandits. And that too when an elite Jounin was watching over him. He will have his character development slowly to shed off this habit and be more brave. Getting stronger will also affect his behavior. P.S. He'll always choose to take the easier way out and focus on his own benefits though. I'll upload the chapters soon. We'll try to upload 5 every week. Could increase or decrease depending upon chapter sizes. Chapter 53, up a few notches. After the mission ended, Renjiro continued the training of his students. One day, when the training was about to end, Renjiro observed his 3 students. He smiled seeing them with a bit of pride. He thought, these 3 have turned out to be quite good. I'll be surprised if any of them aren't promoted to Jounin before they turn 16. I suppose they do deserve some praise from their sensei. The training was completed soon and the Genins were about to leave when Renjiro stopped them. He said, 3 months earlier I accepted to be the Jounin sensei of your squad. Do you recall what I told you then? Fujin, Hoka and Mieko all shake their heads. Hoka asked, what did you say, sensei? Renjiro sighed and said, you guys are on a probation period, remember? Understanding that Renjiro just wanted to make it official, Fujin tilted his head and asked, what probation period, sensei? Mieko, do you remember any? Mieko understood him and tilted her head too. Nope, don't remember. Any idea, Hoka? Hoka too tilted his head and said, nope. No idea what you're talking about, sensei. Renjiro's face goes completely dark, looking at the perfect poker face maintained by his 3 students. Seeing his reaction, the 3 Genins couldn't help but laugh out loud. Renjiro finally gives up on the antics of his students. He composed himself and said, you guys have pa. However, Hoka cuts him off and says, we already know, sensei. And the 3 Genins flicker away, leaving their sensei completely dumbfounded. Renjiro smiled bitterly and muttered to himself, I really need to have a word with the one who suggested I put the top squad of the year on probation. It had been 4 weeks since they had been officially made Genins. Fujin, Hoka and Mieko were resting under a tree after the morning workout. Mieko started the conversation by saying, the final round of the Chunin exams will be tomorrow. Mieko nodded and said, yeah, 2 of my classmates will be participating in the fight tomorrow. Mieko continued, yeah, I want to see Yori's fight. I wonder if sensei would allow us to see the fights. Fujin chuckled and said, good luck asking sensei for a holiday. On hearing that, Mieko looked at Fujin with an annoyed expression. Fujin ignored that and thought, that said, it won't be a bad thing to see how much Teru and Yori have progressed. They have been Genin for a year longer than me. After the break, Renjiro appeared and gathered his squad. On seeing him, Mieko quickly wanted to ask him permission to watch the next day's fights. However, Renjiro stopped her and said, we'll be taking another mission. We will leave tomorrow at 9 a.m. Mieko quickly asked, sensei, can't we take the mission a couple of days later? Renjiro squinted his eyes and asked, why? She replied, sensei, we were wondering if we could watch the Chunin exams that will be held tomorrow. Renjiro with the same expression asked the same thing again, why? Mieko put up a diligent expression and answered seriously, "We want to observe the tactics, strategies and jutsus that ninjas from our neighboring villages use. That way we will be more prepared when we have to fight them." Fujin chuckled internally at the answer. Renjiro didn't forbid any ideas they had. Just that he required a solid reason to agree to them. That was why Mieko prepared such an answer. Renjiro dismissively waved his hands and said, "It's merely Genin's fighting. You won't learn much." He then looked at his squad and said, "Let's get back to training." Mieko slumped her shoulders in disappointment. Fujin thought, "That's a bit surprising. I thought he would agree with that reasoning." Well, whatever, it doesn't matter much. The next day, Team Renjiro accepted the mission to accompany a merchant caravan to the Land of Rivers. The mission was very uneventful, with only one small bandit group trying to assault the caravan. It took 9 days to reach the Land of Rivers, and the return journey took another day. The squad returned to Konoha around midnight. After completing the formalities, Renjiro dismissed the squad. Fujin, on returning home, saw a bunch of newspapers lying outside his door. He picked them up and went inside. He made a couple of shadow clones to go through the papers while he went for a bath. The clones went through the papers briefly and dispelled themselves. On receiving all the information, Fujin thought, "I see, both Teru and Yori became Chunin. A bit surprising, but I guess Konoha is still trying to increase the number of Chunins and Jounins. Well, I suppose my promotion too should happen in my first attempt then." Not having much to do for the remaining day, Fujin decided to brush up on his Fuinjutsu. He made 3 clones, and all 4 together created all the seals that they knew. While revising his Fuinjutsu knowledge, Fujin began reviewing his progress over the last few months. He analyzed, "It's been 4 months since I graduated. The progress has honestly been phenomenal. I really underestimated the effect of having a dedicated elite jounin guiding you. Then again, I never expected that we'd be taught this well. My chakra reserves have almost doubled. The amount of pressure I can handle from my training seal is up to 18%. Despite not training, I can now sense up to a kilometer away. Taijutsu too has improved a lot due to constant sparring. And undoubtedly, my ninjutsu and kenjutsu have improved the most. I can now use chakra flow on my sword with ease. I really want to get into an all-out fight to test my power. I wonder if I'll get any such chance soon." The next day, at 4:45 a.m., Fujin arrived at the training ground. Mieko and Hoka were already there. Seeing them, Fujin asked, "Yo, ready for another 3 to 4 weeks of hardcore training?" Mieko's shoulders dropped and she replied, "I'd rather go on missions." Fujin and Hoka chuckled, looking at her reactions. For months of training together and 2 long missions outside the village had improved the relationship between the 3 a lot. Their teamwork was also very good. Though it still needs to be tested against a proper ninja team. At 5, Renjiro flickered in front of his team. Seeing his team is ready to begin their morning workout, he nodded internally. However, knowing what was to come, he couldn't help smirking a bit. Seeing that smirk instantly made his genins very worried. Fujin thought, "Okay, what now?" Renjiro started by saying, "In the last 4 months I have drilled all the basic formations into you. You'll use these formations even when you become genins." The team calmed down after hearing this. Fujin thought, finally. No more boring training sessions on team formations. But why is he smirking? He won't become kind all of a sudden. Renjiro continued, "So from now on I'll be entirely focusing on increasing your capabilities. So the training will go up a few notches." Hearing that, all the 3 genins were stunned. Mieko freaked out. "A few notches?" Fujin was also sweating a bit. "Doesn't he already make us exert our 100%? Hoka too wondered how intense a few notches would be. /N, thanks 1995 for being my first P at Trian. Chapter 54, Senju Taijutsu Style. Renjiro just chuckled at their expressions and said, "First, we are going to increase the pressure applied by the training seals. What are the pressures you are using right now?" Mieko replied, 3% Hoka, 38% Fujin, 18.5%, /N. Fujin's seal has twice the upper limit as compared to the other 2. So it's just barely below Hoka's. Renjiro nodded and said, "Good. Mieko, you'll increase it to 5%. Hoka to 45%. Fujin to 22%. The genins followed the instructions of their sensei. After increasing the pressure, Renjiro began the morning workout. In addition to increasing the pressure from the seals, the training itself was made much tougher. And instead of ending at 9, it continued till 10:00 at the end of the training. All 3 Genins were lying under a tree, in a lifeless manner. Renjiro laughed looking at this scene and said loudly, "How will you guys achieve your dreams if a simple training session defeats you? You have an hour's break. The afternoon training will continue from 11 to 2. On saying that he flickered away. After half an hour, Fujin and Hoka gained some energy. While Mieko was still sleeping, Hoka asked, "Any idea why he suddenly doubled the intensity of the training?" Fujin replied, "Who knows? Maybe he plans to enter us in the next Chunin exam. Or maybe he was just letting us take it easy as we just graduated." He took a deep breath before continuing, "Anyways, it seems like it'll be very helpful for us." Hoka sighed and said, "I always thought I was the one who looked forward to training the most. But it seems like you are even more of a maniac than me." Saying that, he laughed lightly. Fujin looked back at him before chuckling a bit and said, "Oh well. Let's hope that we get out of this alive." He then grabbed his ration bars and devoured them and began stretching. Hoka followed. At 11, Renjiro appeared again. He created 2 shadow clones and said, "Today we will be discussing how to increase your growth rate. Follow one." Mieko and Hoka follow a shadow clone each into the forests, while Fujin stays there. Renjiro looked at Fujin and asked, "Who do you think has grown the fastest among you 3? Fujin thought for a bit and answered, "Probably me." Renjiro nodded and replied, "Indeed. You've grown much faster than any of your academy teachers predicted. Even faster than I predicted. However, compared to your 2 teammates, you have a huge disadvantage. Do you know what it is?" Fujin fell into thought on hearing the question. After a minute, he answered, "Kekki Genkai." Renjiro nodded, "Right, but not completely. Along with their Kekki Genkai, they also have their huge clans, which have already developed complementary jutsus to leverage the advantage their Kekki Genkai gives them." Hearing that, Fujin fell into his thoughts. Renjiro continued, "Both Hoka and Mieko are very talented. Soon their families will begin heavily investing in them, boosting their growth at a high speed in a systematic way. What do you have to contend with? Or will you be left behind by them?" Fujin replied seriously, "That is why I invested time into becoming a censor and learning swordplay. I don't have any Kekki Genkai. So obviously I won't get any sudden boost to my powers. But as long as I keep training my skills to the limit, I'll surpass the ninjas who depend on their Kekki Genkai." Renjiro maintained a serious face and asked, "What makes you think that the ones with Kekki Genkai won't train to their limits? Do you really think that you can surpass them despite all the advantages they have over you?" Fujin smiled and put his hand gently on his sword handle. "I've heard that the strongest samurai in the Land of Iron can go head-to-head against a Kage with nothing but his sword. Even in Konoha, despite having so many people with Kekki Genkai, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Hokage are all ninjas who didn't have any Kekki Genkai. Similarly, no member of the Sanins has a Kekki Genkai. So as long as I keep training hard, I don't think I'd lose to anyone with a Kekki Genkai." Renjiro was surprised to hear this answer. More importantly, he was surprised to hear the confidence in Fujin's voice. He smiled wryly and thought, "Oh well, this one has no need of any encouragement or confidence boost. Though he might need a reality check." At the same time, Fujin was thinking, was he planning to give me a pep talk or something? Anyways, while Kekki Genkai is good, it's not something that would churn out rank S ninjas. Other than Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Rinnegan, and maybe Tensigan, others aren't really overbearing. I guess the Senju treat the wood release with the highest respect, but in all honesty it was Hashirama who made wood style overpowered and not vice versa. Besides, of my 2 teammates, one is about to die soon, while the other has a cursed seal put on him. Not really something I'd be jealous about." After a short pause, Renjiro began talking again. "That's a good perspective to have. But don't forget that whether it's the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Hokage, or the 3 Sanins, all were extremely talented and hardworking. So while it's a good thing to take inspiration from them, don't forget that you'll have to train extremely hard to even dream about reaching that level." Fujin nodded and replied, "Yes, sensei." Renjiro smiled and added, "There's one another thing I want to tell you about Kekki Genkai. But you are not ready for it yet. I'll tell you when you complete your first B rank mission as a Chunin." Fujin wondered what Renjiro wanted to tell him. He replied, "All right, sensei." Renjiro then asked, "What is your analysis of your current capability? And how do you plan on continuing your training?" Fujin thought for a bit before answering, "To start with, my ability as a sensornin is developing decently. But that'll be my secondary ability. In terms of fighting, it seems like my mainstay will be wind release and swordplay. Swordplay is my preferred choice of close combat, while wind release gives me mid and long range capabilities. Of course, both still have a lot of work that needs to be done. I can use some earth release jutsus for defensive purposes, and I have body flicker jutsu for mobility. My physical strength, speed, and chakra are decent too, I guess. At least for a genin, that is." Renjiro was impressed by Fujin's analysis. Fujin continued, "As for what I'm missing or need to improve, I need some strong jutsu in my arsenal that can create a deadly impact or devastation on the battlefield. And my taijutsu needs to improve. All I have there is the basic academy style." On completing his answer, he looked up at his sensei. Renjiro replied, "On-point analysis. You don't need to worry about a strong jutsu though. When you become a jounin, you'll get to look at rank A jutsus that our village has. For now, stick with rank C jutsus. Preferably for the next couple of years, until your chakra grows considerably. You are right about your taijutsu though. While you did rank high in the academy, that basic style won't aid you much in growing stronger. That's why I'll be teaching you the taijutsu I practice. That is the Senju Taijutsu style." Chapter 55, The Path to Becoming an Elite. That surprised Fujin. He quickly thanked his sensei. "Thank you, sensei. But can you just teach it to someone who isn't from the Senju clan?" Renjiro raised his eyebrow and asked, "What do you mean, someone? You are my student." He then laughed and said, "Don't worry, our techniques are for the whole village. Anyone who can learn it can use them. Of course, the keyword is can." Fujin asked, "What do you mean by can, sensei?" Renjiro replied, "The people from our clan are blessed with high levels of chakra. Surely you'd have sensed that by now." Fujin nodded. Renjiro continued, "So our techniques usually have high chakra requirements. If anyone else were to try and learn, they'll run out of chakra very quickly. You, on the other hand, have a lot of chakra as compared to your counterparts. In fact, it's more than both Hoka and Miki combined. So you'll be perfect to learn Senju Taijutsu style." Fujin quickly understood and nodded. "All right. When can we start, sensei? Also, can you explain what exactly is Senju Taijutsu style? I haven't ever read it." Renjiro replied, "We'll begin right away after I explain the basics. Senju Taijutsu style is actually pretty straightforward. Actually, the Academy Taijutsu style was created by referring to our style. What makes Senju style lethal is the use of chakra. Any taijutsu style basically consists of users fighting with their arms and legs or some other body parts. Of course, there are a few exceptions, like Hyuga Taijutsu, which releases small amounts of chakra from their fingers or palm, and a clan in Kiri that uses bones. In Senju Taijutsu style, your every move will be reinforced by chakra. You want to punch? Your fist needs to gather chakra first and release it on impact. You want to kick? You have to do the same. You want to block? Infuse chakra into the body part you want to block with or is about to hit. This ensures that your defense is like a fortress, while your attack is devastating. Of course, such a style means that not only do you need to have a huge amount of chakra, but you also need to have very good chakra control. Else, even a huge chakra reserve will get depleted very quickly." Renjiro's explanation shocked Fujin a bit. He analyzed, "Isn't this similar to Tsunade's fighting style? In fact, I did already make some attempts of infusing chakra in my punches. To think this is the Senju style. Tsunade's fighting style probably represents the Senju Taijutsu style used by someone who's reached the peak of chakra control. Anyways, this is very good. Finally, a taijutsu style that can allow me to compete or even overpower others." After analyzing, he said, "Let's start, sensei." Renjiro nodded and began the training. He sighed. First, we will start by getting you to completely infuse your chakra in your whole body. Once you can do that, we will begin concentrating on infusing it with individual body parts only. Display your entire chakra first." Fujin obeyed and released his entire chakra. Renjiro looked at Fujin. He could see a blue chakra completely cloaking Fujin. His first thought was, marvelous. Fujin too was in thought, actually I do have some basic understanding of this, while I never exposed it for obvious reasons. Now will be a good time to use it to just show it as natural talent, hehe. Following Fujin's expectations, Renjiro gave his next command. Now try to contain that chakra inside your body, such that it flows through your entire body. Think of it as similar to you doing chakra flow on your body rather than just your sword. Fujin followed his guidance. He slowly began containing that chakra in his body. In around 2 minutes, the blue aura cloaking him slowly disappeared. But if someone were to observe closely, they'd notice blue chakra flares being expelled occasionally from his body. Renjiro, who was standing right in front of him, was shocked. He thought, so fast? He swallowed his saliva before exclaiming to himself, this is unbelievable. Though the control isn't perfect by any means, he managed to contain the chakra in just a couple of minutes. It's as if this technique was made for him. Fujin looked up at Renjiro before asking, is this proper, sensei? Renjiro nodded and replied, yes, very good. But you are losing a lot of chakra while trying to maintain this form. The next phase of your training will be to perfect this form. You'll activate it and meditate until you can properly contain your chakra with zero loss. Until then, no ninjutsu or kenjutsu practice for you. In fact, even when doing your morning workout, you'll start doing it by maintaining this form. Hearing that he won't get to practice ninjutsu or kenjutsu disappointed Fujin a bit, but seeing the importance Renjiro stressed on this, he could vaguely guess that this will become something that might define him for a long time to come. It might even be what breaks him apart from the normal ninjas and pave his way into becoming an elite. Renjiro's thoughts too were along the same lines. Now that I've seen your potential in this, no way I'd allow you to not raise this aspect to the peak. Apart from a short lunch break, Fujin ended up training alongside Renjiro till 8 p.m. Finally, at 8, the training ended and Fujin was allowed to leave. Before leaving, however, Renjiro said something that left Fujin tongue-tied. He said, tomorrow, increase the pressure on your seal to 30% during the morning workout. Fujin looked at his teacher skeptically, but seeing the serious look on his face, he just nodded helplessly. On reaching home, Fujin ate a few ration bars and straightaway dived into his bed thinking, damn! My entire body is sore. It's as if each and every cell in my body is screaming in pain. This is nuts. No wonder Renjiro asked me to double my ration bar intake. Still though, the progress that I made just today is crazy. If I manage to keep up with this training for months, I have no idea how strong I'd become. Not having the energy to do anything, he fell asleep. Chapter 56, Rapid Improvement. A/N, the fanfic has crossed 100k words. The next morning when he woke up, something left Fujin completely shocked. His body had no pain whatsoever. He speculated, does this training also heal the body in some way? Or is it something else? More importantly, is this safe? I need to consult him ASAP. Renjiro appeared at the training ground at 5 a.m. as usual and asked the Genins to begin their workout. However, today Fujin said, Sensei, I have some queries. Understanding what query he'd have, he replied, alright. Hoka, Mieko, you two begin your workout. Fujin will join you two soon. Hoka left wondering what query Fujin had, while Mieko left begrudgingly as Fujin got to skip out on the workout a bit. Renjiro then looked at Fujin and asked, is it about the quick healing? Fujin nodded. Renjiro answered, it's a side effect of this training. Since you infuse chakra in your body, it ends up activating each and every cell of your body. This will increase your passive healing and also reduce the amount of time you need to recover from fatigue or exhaustion. He then smiled a bit and continued, there's actually a few more advantages of this training. It'll increase your stamina and, more importantly, your chakra reserves. Fujin's eyes widened on hearing that. He quickly asked, isn't it too much of a hacks? Renjiro smirked and said, not really. The passive healing, while good, isn't really groundbreaking. As for chakra increase, it is only visible when you start this training, and if your chakra reserve isn't already very high. So while you may see a huge boost to your chakra and stamina in the next few weeks, later on, the effect won't really be that obvious. That killed Fujin's excitement a bit as he sank into his thoughts. Oh, then it's not that big of a hacks. But still pretty good though. After all, the very requirement to learn this style is having high chakra. And if the effect of learning this style was a boost to your chakra reserve, then it just doubles down on that advantage. He looked back at Renjiro and asked, is there any harmful side effect to using this technique? Renjiro was a bit surprised by that question. After all, any other 10-year-old Genin would just be too happy with such a huge buff. He remembered that he himself had been lost in delight when he had learnt this technique. He answered, "Don't worry, this is a very old Senju technique. There are no harmful effects. In fact, considering the long lifespans of my clan members, it might even be having a good effect on your health." Hearing the answer, Fujin let out a sigh of relief. Renjiro looked at him and said, "If you have no more questions, begin your workout. Your teammates have left you behind considerably." Fujin thanked him and started the workout. While he had increased the pressure from the seal a lot, infusing chakra meant that exercises were actually easier for him. Of course, that wasn't foolproof. After all, the moment his chakra ran out was the moment hell began feeling real to Fujin. Later that day, Fujin talked with Renjiro about the issue of chakra running out during the morning workout. But Renjiro just smiled innocently and said, "You have enough chakra to be able to go through the whole morning workout without running out. It's just your control that is lacking. So if you don't want to run out of chakra during your workout, train and improve your control." Fujin gave a deadpan look to his teacher's innocent smile. He could bet all his money that he was laughing at his misery. The training continued in a similar manner for Fujin. After 3 days, he finally managed to last the entire morning workout without running out of chakra. On day 7. He finally managed to contain all chakra in his body properly. He still didn't reach zero wastage, but the amount of chakra leaking out now was very negligible. These 7 days, however, had blown Fujin's mind. The result of this training was phenomenal. He muttered to himself in disbelief, "Just 1 week of this training has increased my chakra reserves by 50%. In addition to the chakra increase, Renjiro made Fujin increase the pressure on the training seal from day 3 onwards. Right now it was up to 40%. The next month was spent on properly mastering chakra control for the Senju Taijutsu style. At the end of the training, Fujin could finally freely control his chakra and employ it in a spar against Renjiro. This training increased his chakra by another 35 to 40%. In just over 5 months since he graduated, Fujin's chakra reserves had a 4-fold increase. His thoughts were incredible. "I now have more chakra than even Genki." And he was an elite chunin for 4 years at least. Damn, I really want to test out my ninjutsu right now. Unfortunately, he was still denied permission to train ninjutsu. With all 3 students training intensely, Renjiro didn't take any missions for a couple of months. Renjiro spent a few more weeks drilling all the basics of Senju Taijutsu style in Fujin. The process of increasing pressure from the training seal continued during this time. At that moment it was at 55%. Fujin always had to keep infusing his body with chakra while doing rigorous training or sparring. Otherwise, this pressure would slow him down a lot. And if he was doing some normal activities like walking or running or resting, then the pressure shouldn't really bother him much. By this logic, Renjiro had Fujin maintain that pressure all the time. Finally, one fine evening, Renjiro watched a tired Fujin panting on the ground. They had just finished another one of their spars. He smiled and said, "Great work, kiddo. You have finally got all the basics down properly." Fujin just nodded. Clearly, he was too tired to answer back. Renjiro smiled and said, "Let's end here. Take a rest and take tomorrow off." Hearing that, Fujin suddenly looked up. There were almost tears in his eyes. He thought, "Finally." Renjiro chuckled at his reaction and then flickered away. Fujin rested a bit and then dragged himself across Konoha to his house while thinking, "Finally. 2 months and not a single day's break." Hoka and Mieko got off days saying that they needed to master their clan jutsus. But for me? I didn't get even a single session off. He went to sleep while complaining about the unfairness in his heart. Chapter 57, Supercharged Wind Jutsus. The next day, Fujin, for the first time in years, slept like a log till noon. On waking up, there was no soreness from the earlier day. He thought, "Got to admit, I really love this aspect of this training. I always wake up in full health and stamina. Anyways, no more ration bars today." After freshening up, he left home. While talking, he thought, "I really miss the advanced technology. In my previous life, I could never imagine myself being without a smartphone for years. Heck, I would have most likely spent today on the net, while lazing on my sofa and ordering all the food home, haha." Soon, he arrived at Ichiraku. He sat there and said, "Old man, give me one of each bowl you have." Tucci was surprised at the order. After all, it's not daily when someone would overeat ramen. He smiled and said, "You've come here after a long time, Fujin. Fujin sighed, yeah. Another old man made me train all the time. So I had no free time at all. Teuchi smiled and encouraged him, hang in there, young man. And he began making the ramen. Ever since he graduated, Fujin's trips to Ichiraku and Yakiniku had increased. His food was usually just ration bars, and when he got an opportunity he would visit these two restaurants. So his relationship with Teuchi was good. Soon 2 bowls were served in front of Fujin. Teuchi wore his trademark smile and said, "Eat up. You'll need all the energy you can get." Fujin wasted no time in digging in. Soon he ended up eating all 7 types of ramen in Ichiraku. Once done, he said, "They were delicious, old man. Give me 2 more miso and tonkatsu ramen." Teuchi smiled and yelled, "Coming right up." After lunch, Fujin went into the forest he used to train earlier in. He smirked while thinking, finally a break. Now let me test my jutsu. On reaching the deepest part of the forest, he stood in front of a tree. Well, here goes nothing, and he uses his great breakthrough jutsu. The jutsu uproots the tree as well as a few more trees behind and adjacent to that tree. In addition, the winds created by the jutsu created deep slashes in many nearby trees and stripped them of all their leaves and most of their branches. Watching the scene, Fujin grinned. Excellent. This is almost 40 to 50% stronger than it was 2 months ago. And now. Fujin's grin grew wider. He suddenly exerted his chakra, causing a blue aura to form around him. He began preparing another great breakthrough jutsu. Only this time, instead of releasing it, he began pouring a lot more chakra into this jutsu. In 30 seconds, he managed to pour 10% of his chakra into the jutsu. In another 30 seconds, it reached 15%. Great breakthrough jutsu. He exhaled the jutsu. Only this time, instead of normal jutsu, it was supercharged with chakra. The jutsu hit the tree in front of him, completely obliterating it. In a fraction of a second, hundreds of trees in the vicinity were uprooted or cut into pieces. Thousands were stripped of all their branches and left with deep scars. /n, apologies climate lovers. Luckily, Naruto world isn't threatened by climate change. Fujin was shocked on seeing the destruction. However, soon, the shock on his face was changed to a grin that seemed to be plastered on his face. Excellent. Marvelous. Now this is what a jutsu is. But that said, the amount of time needed to supercharge the jutsu is too long. Any capable ninja will kill me a dozen times if I stay in one spot for a minute. I'll have to increase the speed of pouring my chakra into the jutsu. Preferably reduce it to under 2 seconds. And have to do it while moving around, or even better, while flickering around. I guess this is why Renjiro asked us to focus on rank C jutsus. Now let me test the other jutsus. Fujin quickly made a hand sign. Soon winds gathered around him. He infused chakra into his jutsu for 30 seconds. The winds then spun around him in a dome shape at a very rapid speed. The wind kept spinning around Fujin for a couple of minutes. Even before the wind dome dispersed, Fujin made a hand sign. The winds turn into 2 wolves. They are 3 meters in height and almost 7 meters long, looking incredibly ferocious. They ran towards the nearby trees and shredded a few of them with their claws and teeth before disappearing. Next, Fujin once again gathered his chakra and poured it into Wind Dragon Jutsu. He managed to pour a little over 2.0% of his max chakra into it. It resulted in a 50-meter-long dragon forming in the forest. The dragon opened its mouth, forming a huge wind explosion jutsu, and launched it toward the trees. The sphere traveled in a straight line and exploded on hitting a tree, snapping it into 2. Then traveled in a zigzag way through the forest, slashing many trees with the winds in its large body. It managed to travel 200 meters through the thick forest cover before dispersing. Soon after, 2 spheres of wind appeared in Fujin's hands. Their size quickly increased to around 50 centimeters in radius. Fujin launched it at the same time on a boulder. They exploded on the boulders and created a few scars all over them. Fujin analyzed them. The damage increase is kinda unnecessary. After all, it's just slashes of wind. Any random slash can give a fatal blow to a normal ninja anyways. And if someone does create a strong defense, then it'll end up blocking the enhanced wind explosion jutsu with ease too. Yeah, it's unnecessary. Let's just increase the speed of launching. At the very next moment, Fujin began spamming the wind explosion jutsu. In just a minute, he ended up launching 84 wind explosion jutsus. Fujin grinned. Excellent. And it cost me around 7% of my chakra. This will be a very annoying tactic at mid-range, haha. Next, Fujin looked around himself to look for an appropriate stone. He finally found one, a few dozen meters from him, which he guessed would weigh around 15 kg. That he concentrated on the stone. Immediately, strong winds begin blowing around the stone, trying to get underneath the stone. After a few seconds, the stone started getting lifted into the sky. After around half a minute, Fujin was able to raise the stone to a height of 1.2 meters. He then raised his arms towards the stone. Wind retrieval jutsu. The stone slowly began moving towards himself. He brought the stone to him and caught it in his hands. The amount of power I can exert with these two jutsus has increased too. I wonder if I'll be able to fly with the help of these two jutsus. Though I guess I'll need much more chakra and much better control. And probably even then it might not be useful for long-distance travel. Chapter 58, Analysis and a Weird Situation. Tossing the stone away, Fujin put his hand in his bag and tossed 12 shurikens one after another in the air. Projectile control jutsu. Fujin used the jutsu to control the shurikens and had them move through the forest while avoiding all the trees. The shuriken moved continuously through the forest and all of them hit the same tree around 500 meters away from Fujin. The next moment, Fujin appeared next to that tree using wind instantaneous body jutsu. He retrieved the shurikens while concluding, "Wow, I didn't think that 2 months of Senju Taijutsu training would end up boosting my ninjutsu so much that I end the great breakthrough jutsu. I could pour up to 15% of my chakra." While it took a minute, the result was very good. The spinning shield of wind could only take up to 2.5% of my chakra. I just couldn't add more to it. It was similar to the wind gale wolf jutsu. I could just pour 2% of my chakra into each of the wolves. The wind dragon jutsu on the other hand could take 20% of my jutsu. And using wind instantaneous body jutsu to my current limit of 500 meters requires 1.5% of my chakra. Wind projectile jutsu requires a negligible amount of my chakra now. While each wind explosion jutsu needs less than 0.1% of my chakra, wind levitation jutsu doesn't have much battle use for now. Wind retrieval jutsu can be used to create some chaos though. Anyways, just this short show of my jutsus cost me almost 50% of my chakra. I wonder if Renjiro has more means to increase my chakra levels. Though it shouldn't be an issue for now as I can't really supercharge any jutsu in combat. Fujin began gathering chakra again and slammed his hands on the ground. A rock shield appeared in front of him. Seeing the shield, Fujin sighed, "No wonder it is just a ranky jutsu. It has already long reached the limit for me. There's no scope to improve it anymore." The size of the rock shield was no bigger than what Fujin could do 2 months ago. That said, I need to discuss with Renjiro and see if he could have any method to release the jutsu by stepping on the ground rather than slamming hands down. Oh well, I'll ask when he restarts ninjutsu training. After concluding, Fujin made a hand sign and disappeared underground. While underground, he sighed, "I've been so busy with everything that I never really practiced this jutsu after graduation." He kept moving underground for a bit, before suppressing his chakra signal and making another couple of hand signs. In an instant he disappeared and reappeared around 150 meters in the direction he was facing. Earth instantaneous body jutsu and wind instantaneous body jutsu are perfect for escaping without leaving any trail. Earth instantaneous body jutsu would actually be perfect for infiltrating enemy territory. I wonder what counter has been developed against this jutsu. He then rose up from the ground, made another hand sign and placed his hand on the ground. The ground ahead of him transformed into a moat of mud. The size of the moat was 6 meters in radius and 10 meters in depth. He moved to a different spot, made a few hand signs and slammed his hands again on the ground. This time the ground rose slowly as if trying to trap someone. Fujin analyzed, earth-holding jutsu is just too slow. Kinda a similar situation with mud moat jutsu. Then again, these two are the only jutsus that I can use to trap enemies. Should be sufficient for now. Having tried and analyzed the current status of most of his jutsus, Fujin decided to return home to rest. While leaving, he muttered to himself while looking at the ground, "My jutsus should be good enough for now. But I do need the earth wall jutsu. That'll improve my ability to defend further. And my current chakra should be plenty for it. Though I guess Renjiro won't allow it. Anyways, I hope that we get to participate in the next Chunin exam. I really want to test myself in combat. It should be fun." He grinned and looked up. What he saw made him feel a bit awkward. A good chunk of the forest was utterly destroyed by Fujin testing his jutsus. He wondered, if someone were to come here and see this, I wonder what they'll think. Luckily, this area is kinda remote and people shouldn't be coming here. But in any case, I should hide my tracks in case someone did come here. Also, it would probably be best if I don't return here in the near future. Fujin jumped onto a branch of one of the trees that still had branches. Gale jutsu, a gentle breeze blew through the forest, covering up every footprint in it and also dispersing the scent slightly. Once this task was done, Fujin made a hand sign and disappeared from his spot, and appeared on another branch around 500 meters away. He used wind instantaneous body jutsu a few more times before getting out of the forest. After leaving the forest, he flickered away toward his house while wondering if anyone would ever see the havoc there. A couple of months later, two special jounins from the Hyuga clan happened to pass through this forest, when they unwittingly entered the area where Fujin had caused the devastation. Seeing the number of uprooted and sliced-off trees left them dumbfounded. Coincidentally, a squad of Umbu too happened to cross through the same area at that time. Seeing the two Hyuga present, they instantly began asking them for the reason why they destroyed the forest and inquired whether there was any battle there. The Hyugas denied the charge and said that the forest was already wrecked. The Umbus looked around carefully and realized that it had been a long time since the destruction had happened. They investigated around and asked the Hyugas to help them, but found no clue. They wondered if someone was training here, but couldn't understand why anyone would train here when there are so many training grounds available around Konoha. The unusual nature of this destruction made them report the situation to the Hokage. Hiruzen too was confused similarly. He sent out an Umbu squad specializing in investigation and tracking to check. Unfortunately, Gale Jutsu, 2 months of time, and a few showers of rain had removed anything that could have been used to find a clue. The Umbus would return empty-handed, and Hiruzen dropped the case as there were no clues and it wasn't worth allocating more resources to. Of course, Fujin would forever remain ignorant about such an incident happening. Chapter 59 Discussion. After testing his jutsus, Fujin returned home and took another short nap. Later he revised his Fuin jutsu skills before having dinner at yakiniku. The next day once again started with an intense morning workout. In the afternoon, the team again broke up to train with Renjiro and his clones. Renjiro looked at Fujin and said, "I have taught everything I know about Senju Taijutsu style. How much you manage to master depends on you now." Fujin bowed a bit and said, "Thank you, sensei." Seeing his humility, Renjiro's face softened. He said, "You had once said that the Sanins too don't have any Kekkei Genkai. One of the Sannin, Lady Tsunade, uses an advanced form of Senju Taijutsu. She modified the style to complement her perfect chakra control, making it much more deadly. Your own talent with this style too is very high. So work hard on it." Fujin nodded and said, "Yes, sensei. I'll keep improving it." Renjiro continued, "Regardless, it's time to focus back on ninjutsu and kenjutsu. We will practice all your jutsus once. And then we will begin working on supercharging your jutsus." Fujin instantly got excited upon hearing that. Renjiro noticed and squinted his eyes. He asked, "You have already tried it, haven't you?" Fujin laughed nervously before confirming it. Renjiro sighed and said, "I hope you didn't end up destroying anything." To which Fujin obediently shook his head, saying, "Don't worry, sensei. I shot everything straight up in the air." Renjiro asked, "All right. So what were your observations?" Fujin replied, "It takes a lot of time to supercharge jutsus. So it just won't be usable in battles unless I can bring the time down a lot." Renjiro nodded. Fujin continued, "Apart from that, I couldn't supercharge all my jutsus, especially Rock Shield Jutsu, which didn't improve at all. Great Breakthrough and Wind Dragon Jutsu had the best effect on supercharging." Renjiro said, "Yes, that's how supercharging works. While you can try to pour a lot of chakra into any jutsu, not all jutsus can be supercharged. The amount of chakra you can pour in also depends on your chakra reserves, chakra control, mastery of the element, mastery of that jutsu, and the jutsu itself. Though Konoha lacks wind jutsus, you are lucky to have wind affinity, as almost all of the rank C wind jutsus can be supercharged. As for the Rock Shield Jutsu, its capacity is very low. So don't concern yourself with it. In the next few months, I'll be teaching all three of you how to supercharge your jutsus quickly in battle situations. Since your chakra reserve is the highest, you'll need to work the hardest here. Before we begin, do you have any queries?" Fujin nodded and replied, "Yes, sensei. I have a few." The first one is related to Rock Shield Jutsu. I can now perform the jutsu without any hand signs, but I still need to slam my hands on the ground. Do you know any way to perform the jutsu by slamming the feet down instead? Renjiro raised his left eyebrow and asked, "Why do you want to do that?" Fujin answered, "It'll improve the efficiency of the jutsu a lot. I carry swords in my hands, so to slam my hands on the ground, I'll have to discard my swords temporarily, which doesn't seem to be a good idea. If I can perform the jutsu with just my feet, I can just use it while I'm fighting with my sword. And if the enemy makes a huge attack on me, then I can just retreat back while slamming my feet on the ground and creating multiple rock shields." Renjiro was surprised by Fujin's tactical thinking. He replied, "Good thinking. I never thought about rock shield jutsu along those lines. I guess your intention is to eventually use this for all Earth-style jutsu, right?" Fujin nodded. "Indeed, that will be very convenient." Renjiro continued, "Unfortunately, it won't be possible. Or at the very least, it won't be easy. The hand signs for that jutsu result in Earth nature chakra gathering in your palms. Though you perform the jutsu without any hand signs, you do it by merely replicating the way chakra is molded when you perform the hand signs. Doing what you said will be no different from creating a whole different jutsu." Fujin quickly replied, "In that case, sensei, can't we create new Earth-style jutsus that work in this manner?" Renjiro shook his head and answered, "It's too difficult. While small jutsus are always created, what you are saying will completely revolutionize the jutsus of Earth element. At the very least, I can't do it. Also, while your idea is very innovative, it's highly unlikely that you were the only one who came up with it. And considering that no such jutsu exists to my knowledge, it's safe to say that no one ever managed to create it." Fujin was dejected a bit upon hearing this. "Oh well, there goes one of my ideas to annoy the enemy infinitely." Seeing the dejected look, Renjiro chuckled. Fujin looked back at Renjiro and said, "So since I can't improve my rock shield jutsu anymore, can I get earth wall jutsu?" Renjiro shook his head again and answered, "No, that's a rank B jutsu. Though your chakra reserve is good, you shouldn't be dependent on rank B or higher jutsus till you are promoted to Chunin." The answer was as Fujin expected. Ickly? After all, the training of infusing chakra into the body is barely giving any gains in that regard. Renjiro had a slight disbelief on his face that Fujin actually asked this question. He replied, "Brat, do you think they sell chakra in grocery stores? Your chakra is already 4 times larger as compared to your teammates. Be happy with that and don't get greedy. Also, don't bother searching for more means of increasing your chakra reserves. Other than hard work and natural growth, almost every method has some form of drawback that'll highly restrict you. As for the battle, you can always eat soldier pills to improve your stamina. So don't bother with it." Fujin was a bit shocked at how dismissive Renjiro was. He thought, really, no other means? Sigh, I guess I was expecting way too much. After all, the current boost is already very high. Oh well, I'll leave this issue to the future. If I really desperately need chakra, I can try to steal a tailed beast. Thinking about tailed beasts, Fujin sighed internally. How good it'd have been if I could just throw some pokeballs and capture them? Renjiro asked. Any more queries? Fujin shook his head and replied, "Let's begin, sensei." Chapter 60, Rank a Jutsu. Renjiro trained the trio for another month. This month, Fujin practiced supercharging his jutsus a lot. He could now infuse 20% of his chakra into the Great Breakthrough Jutsu in under 15 seconds. More importantly, he could infuse 5% of chakra into the jutsu in just over 2 seconds. This was usable in battle as long as he maintained some distance. He also mastered Wind Gale Wolf and Wind Dragon jutsus, and could now perform them without any hand signs. The ease with which he became capable of using these jutsus without any hand seals shocked Renjiro. Fujin's kenjutsu also improved a lot. All the basics regarding samurai saber techniques were taught to him. He could freely control chakra flow through his samurai swords. He even managed to properly infuse his wind chakra through the normal chakra flow. Renjiro couldn't help him much in this regard as he himself never added a nature chakra to chakra flow. He specialized in earth and water elements, and neither were suitable to be added to chakra flow. Nonetheless, it was learnt with rather ease by Fujin. In fact, while learning it, he also learnt a technique that he had dreamed about performing for over a decade. The team was given a day's break once again, which all 3 used to rest well. The next day, in the morning, the team met up once again. Hoka saw Fujin coming to the ground and asked, "Hey, how's the training progressing?" Fujin replied, "It's progressing rather smoothly, what about you guys?" Hoka smirked and replied, "It's going very well. I want to spar with you once again." Fujin smirked back and replied, "Well, let's hope that you can touch me this time." That annoyed Hoka, who begrudgingly replied, "Due to you, Sensei drilled me with ninjutsu training for 3 months straight." Hearing that, Fujin laughed. Mieko, annoyed at being left out of the conversation, butted in by snorting, "Humph, I'll beat both of you at the same time in a spar." Hoka and Fujin turned to her. Fujin replied, "Well, let's hope that you have some energy to spar after the morning workout then." Hearing that, her shoulders immediately dropped, while Fujin and Hoka laughed at her expense. The poor girl complained about the unfairness to herself. "It's not as if I'm slacking on those workout sessions. It's just that every time I am about to reach Sensei's target, Sensei just makes it even more difficult." While Mieko was depressed, Renjiro appeared. He announced, "We have trained continuously for the past 3 months. Next, we will be taking continuous rank C missions." That instantly perked up Mieko. After all, missions would mean no more rigorous training. Hoka and Fujin also sighed in relief, as their bodies needed a break badly. Unlike Mieko, who'd drop out early rather regularly, Hoka and Fujin gritted through the entire workout daily. Renjiro continued, "Today we won't do any workout or training. Instead, you guys will spar." This immediately gained the attention of the 3 Genins. Renjiro continued, "You 3 will fight out against each other in a 3-way battle. You are not allowed to team up with each other unless the circumstances force you to. But I can disqualify you if you purposefully cooperate to defeat the 3 RD. The battlefield will be this entire training field. You guys have time from now till 6 p.m. to decide on a winner. You can defeat others by knocking them unconscious or making them give up. Obviously, I can interfere and declare someone to have been lost. And of course, you guys aren't allowed to seriously injure anyone. No soldier pills. And Fujin, no swords." Mieko suddenly asked, "Why no swords for Fujin? Isn't that his go-to weapon?" Hoka also nodded, as he had the same query. Neither of them wanted to win against someone who was handicapped. Renjiro shook his head and said, "Fujin's way of using his swords is solely to kill. If he were to win by using his swords, you guys would be injured badly. Regardless, he is forbidden to use his swords in any spar with his colleagues." They understood the reasoning but were still a bit unconvinced. Fujin butted in, "Aren't you two looking down on me too much? Sword or no sword, neither of you will even be able to touch me." And he smirked on saying that. Hoka and Mieko looked at him irritatingly. Among the 3 of them, Fujin had the highest speed and excelled in fighting at long range. In the few spars that they had, they never managed to actually reach him. Renjiro interrupted before they entered into an argument. "No more questions. My rules are final. Anyways, you guys didn't hear the exciting part. The winner will get a reward." That once again attracted the attention of all 3. Mieko asked, "What reward?" Renjiro replied, "The winner will be awarded a rank a jutsu by me." That shocked the trio. They all had the same thought. Will he really allow us to learn a jutsu higher than rank C? Renjiro understood what his students were thinking. He smiled innocently and said, "Of course, I'll only give it to you when you are promoted to Chunin." Hearing that, all 3 Genins gave him a deadpanned look. Not wanting to hear any complaints from them, he shouted, "Begin." Even before he completed the word, all 3 Genins flickered away in different directions without making any hand seals. Now, at more than 100 meters away from each other, they observed the other 2, while wondering how they should approach this. The best way would have been to team up with one of the other 2, eliminate the third, and then decide the winner. Unfortunately, that option was not available. Suddenly, Hoka and Mieko noticed Fujin smirking. At the very next moment, he disappeared.